Space-time transaction. Exchanging food for the elf princess at the start. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. What are you doing? Is this still China? In the pure white little house, Suyi looked at the boundless starry sky outside the window and was completely stunned. Space-time trading platform. Could it be true? He is a buyer at a food processing factory and has been working there for 3 years. Since graduation point he is quite satisfied with this job. The salary of 5,000 yuan a month is not high, but being in a purchasing position, there are always some other incomes, and it is still a comfortable life point. In addition, the original head of the purchasing department is old and about to retire, so he is the boss of the department, which is really great point. But just last month, the boss's brother-in-law, who had just returned from studying abroad, suddenly became the head of the purchasing department and became Suyi's immediate boss. It was nothing more than a replacement of a boss who didn't care about things, and he would get the benefits. However, Suyi never thought that this new boss seemed to have that serious illness. As soon as he took office, he said that the surge in international grain futures would inevitably lead to an increase in domestic grain prices, and that the factory must stock up a batch of grain before the price rises. After all kinds of dissuasion failed, Suyi was urged by him to purchase 1,000 tons of flour and 500 tons of rice as raw materials for the food processing plant. Then of course the grain did not rise. After all, this is Jiazhou. What does the rise in international grain futures have to do with this place? Even this month, the purchase price dropped by 20 cents, and the factory lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. What Suyi didn't expect was that this guy didn't admit what he had done and put the blame on him. Yesterday, the boss personally told Suyi that he had to dispose of this batch of grain at the original purchase price within a week. Otherwise he would pack up and leave. Now the employment situation is severe, and he naturally doesn't want to lose such a good job. After gritting his teeth and looking around and finding no one willing to take over, he opened some online trading platforms to try his luck and see if there are any fools. As a result, there are really some. A person with the ID Space-Time trading platform contacted him and said that he could buy the food in his hands at a high price. He had nothing to do, so he chatted with the other party for a few words. As a result, the more they talked, the more outrageous it became. The other party claimed to be a cross-world trading platform and could help him sell things to other worlds. Suyi was not stupid, so of course he didn't believe it. Then he came here. Suyi let out a long breath and calmed himself down. After looking around, he walked to the long table in the middle of the room and opened a booklet. On it, registration notice for Space-Time trading platform. 1. This platform is committed to connecting the multiverse and allowing people in different worlds to exchange what they have. 2. All transactions on this platform must be based on good faith. The goods traded between platform members are strictly prohibited from being counterfeit, inferior, and inferior. Once discovered, the member's license will be revoked. 3. This platform adopts a member points system. You can trade with all members who have reached a long-term trade agreement for free once a week. Each successful transaction will earn a certain amount of trading points, depending on the traded items. The final right of interpretation belongs to the platform. 4. Using trading points, you can trade with the same member multiple times within a week. Additional transactions can also earn trading points. At the same time, trading points can also be used to redeem special props in the platform points mall. 99. Please read the above terms carefully and make sure you have fully understood the above content. If you have no objection, sign in the signature area below to become the only member of this platform in the blue star area. After becoming a member, you will receive a novice member gift package. If you refuse to become a member of this platform, the platform will send you back to Blue Star and erase this memory. Party A, Space-Time Trading Platform. Party B. Suyi carefully read this registration notice several times. There is no word game in it. The rules of the Space-Time Trading Platform are basically written clearly, and these rules are not harsh. He couldn't think of any reason to refuse to sign. And this reminded him of some of the contents in the novels he had read before. What a bottle of water for nuclear fusion. A stone placed in another world is an extremely rare treasure. If this is true, then it will spiral off on the spot. Congratulations, you have become a registered member of the space-time trading platform. Your novice member gift package has been issued. Please check it. The moment Suyui signed his name, the booklet in front of him turned into a stream of light and split into two. One of them flew to the ceiling and didn't know where it went, and the other fell on Suyui's wrist and turned into a strange symbol, which was quite good looking. The words that should have been on the booklet also appeared in his eyes, just like the system described in the novel. Very magical. At the same time, the things given in the novice gift package also appeared in his eyes. Storage space. Primary life transaction permission card X1, universal language card X1, intermediate matching card X1, storage space. You have a private space with a volume of 100 cubic meters, which can store any items. At the same time, you also have an infinite space that can be used to store items on the trading list with other members, except living things. Primary life trading permission card. You can use this card to exchange creatures from other worlds with other members, plants, microorganisms, etc. Do not need to use this card. 1000 worlds language access card. After using it, you can become proficient in the trillions of different languages recorded in this platform from billions of worlds. Intermediate matching card. After use, you will be randomly matched with a member who has complementary advantages to you. Hey, they are all good things. So, Yi couldn't help, but his eyes lit up when he saw these things. There is no need to say much about the storage space. Although only 100 cubic meters are available for other users, it is still a lot. The life transaction permission card has not yet seen much value, so we will not discuss it for now. The All Worlds language access card is amazing. With this thing, Suyui can say that he will never have a language barrier again. As for mid-level matching cards, there is an article in the platform rules about this. Matching cards are required to match other members. The primary matching card is completely random. It is hard to say which transaction object will be matched, and it may be completely worthless as mentioned in the introduction. The mid-level matching card has a high probability of being matched with a member with complementary advantages, and then both parties can conduct transactions, or even sign a long-term trading contract, and obtain platform points as for the higher level matching card. It is even more powerful. It can be 100% matched to a high-level world that is willing to support other worlds. If something leaks out of someone's fingers, it's enough to take off in the ordinary world. Suyui currently does not have a primary matching card, which means that this is his only initial matching opportunity. If it fails, you will have to wait until next year in order to take care of new members who have just joined the platform and have no fixed trading partners and no membership points. The platform will give members a junior matching card on a fixed date every year during the first 100 years of membership. Use the language cards and then directly use the matching cards. It's already here, so it's better to choose the right day than to hit it. Suyui was not a hesitant person. After figuring out the operating mode of the trading platform, he knew that even if he went back, he would not be able to prepare anything in advance. Simply start matching directly. 1G voice access card 1. The language module has been loaded. Intermediate matching card 1. Searching for trading partners with complementary advantages across time and space. Matching successful. As the prompt sounded, the scene in front of Suyui suddenly changed. He left the room in the starry sky and appeared in a simple and solemn grand hall. In front of him was a table carved with complicated textures. He knelt and sat in front of the table. Opposite him was a woman who was also kneeling in front of another table. An incredibly beautiful woman with red hair and a gorgeous golden skirt. "Ah, you my trade partner." The woman's red eyes stared at Suyui with an inquiring look in her eyes. Her accent was very strange. Suyui was sure that it was not any language known on Blue Star, but it was unexpectedly very pleasant. "It should be me." Suyui shrugged, stood up and cupped his hands far away and said, "My name is Suyui. I come from the Blue Star world. What would you call me?" The woman glanced at him for a few times, then stood up and performed a ritual similar to that of a knight, and then said seriously, "The fourth princess of the Blazing Sun Empire in the Dawn world, the leader of the Red Flame Knights, the Thornflower of the Empire, the leader of the Unyielding Will, the Lord of Mengchuan City, the ally of the Elves, the Dragon Slayer, the Goblin Suppressor, the Eternal Burning Sword. Bloody Rose, Lord of Unicorns, the youngest great magician and the strongest Starlight Knight, Vivi Blazing Sun, greets you. Suyi. He glanced at the empty hall with only 2 tables, and wanted to say that there were too many people to sit down point, but considering the preciousness of the mid-level matching cards, I still resisted the urge to complain. Nice to meet you, Miss Wee. Time is precious. Can we talk about the transaction now? So. What do you need? Food, Sue. Yi looked at her carefully. Point, the clothes are gorgeous and exquisite, and the face is pretty and rosy. Point, this doesn't look like being short of food or clothing. Point, seemingly sensing his doubts, Wei explained, my city-state is currently experiencing a war. In order to fight against the evil invaders, we have been fighting each other for 3 full years. Although the city is impregnable, there is not much food stored in the city, so I need food. Lots of food. Got it. Suyi smiled and said, we can provide you with a batch of no less than 500 tons of grain within 3 days. If you give me more time to raise money, I can give you more. So, beautiful Miss Wee, what can you give me? Chapter 2. It would be easy to get food. Point, is this an intermediate matching card that can match trading partners with complementary advantages? How cool. 500 tons. Wee's eyes lit up. Point, this amount of food is enough for her soldiers to consume for half a month, which is enough to meet their urgent needs. But then she thought about it and said, what about vegetables, fruits, and meat? Can you provide them? These are rare items, and distributing them to soldiers can greatly boost their morale. Point. After thinking for a while, without waiting for Suyahu's words, she took out an exquisite glass bottle from her personal storage space, which contained some light green liquid, which should be about 500 milliliters. This is the water of life in the Elf Moon Lake. Is it feasible to exchange it for your food? As she spoke, she pulled out the cork. Point, Suyi immediately smelled a refreshing fragrance. Point, in the past few days, I had been staying up late worrying about work, which had caused me to feel a little depressed. Point, at the same time, introductions to related items also appeared in the trading system. Water of life, spring water that contains rich vitality. Drinking it directly can cure all diseases, prolong life, and enhance physical fitness. Long-term drinking can also promote the evolution of the human body. Please explore more effects by yourself. What a good thing. Suyi couldn't help, but his eyes lit up. Point, not to mention anything else. Just because it can cure all diseases, this water of life is enough to be sold at a sky-high price in Blue Star. However, the system does not mention the usage and dosage of the water of life. Point, the value of this bottle of water of life is hard to determine. Point, and when talking about business, you should naturally try to maximize your own interests. So, after pondering for a while, Suyi stared at Wee, or at a certain accessory on her head, and said, if you need fruits, vegetables and meat, I can provide 10 tons, but I'm afraid it will take some time to prepare. As for the value of this water of life, I can't determine its value at the moment. I prefer to trade it with other items, such as gold. This bottle of water of life, I can exchange it for 50 tons of grain. Of course, if after trying it, I'm sure that its value far exceeds the grain, I will definitely compensate you in the future. You can write this into the transaction contract. Gold. Wee frowned slightly, but she didn't feel displeased. Point, the two worlds are completely different. The process of trading is a process of testing each other's bottom line. Point, she doesn't have a glassy heart, so she won't fall out if others question the function of the water of life. Point, what's more, the water of life she gave was indeed fishy. It was not the original life liquid of the Elf Moon Lake, but a blended product. In her opinion, the effect was only average, and it was really not worth so much food. Point, after some thought, combined with the value of gold in her world, Wee quoted a price that was contrary to the spirit of chivalry. 1 kilogram of gold can be exchanged for 10 tons of grain. As for this bottle of water of life, it will be used to trade for the additional 10 tons of fruits, vegetables, and meat. After saying that, she stared into Suyi's eyes and said very seriously, that's my bottom line. When Suyi heard this, he couldn't help but breathe a little heavier. Based on the current gold price of more than 550 yuan per gram, the market price of 1 kilogram of gold is not less than 550,000 yuan. Even if it is sold through special channels, you can get at least 450,000 yuan, and the price of 10 tons of grain. Their food processing factory only purchases some old grains. The purchase price of flour is less than 2,500 tons, and the rice is even cheaper, less than 2,000 yuan per ton. 10 tons of rice can be sold for as much as 20,000 yuan. This change of hands is a profit of more than 20 times. It is a bloody profit. Make a deal. Su Yi nodded decisively. Of course, he could probably guess that, since the other party could give such a price, it meant that gold might not be rare in her world. At least more than on Blue Star. Although we said verbally that this was the bottom line, as long as he continued to lower the price, he should still be able to earn more. But when it comes to business, you just have to make whatever you have. The current price is already an extremely terrifying profit for him, so there is no need to continue to lower the price. He is not greedy enough to exploit his partners in order to obtain more benefits for himself. Everyone can make money, which is a healthy development model. Wee was also visibly relieved when she heard this. As a princess of the Blazing Sun Empire and a genius in magic and martial arts, she is really not very good at negotiating business. Seeing that the other party agreed so quickly, he felt a little more favorable towards Su Yi and decisively took out the gold that he had already prepared. This thing is also valuable in her world. She has made complete preparations before starting the transaction, so she will naturally bring it with her. Boom. A heavy wooden box appeared on the table. These are the trophies I once obtained in the dragon's lair. They are all gold with very few impurities. As she spoke, she opened the box. There was a pile of golden coins inside, which almost blinded Su Yi. Of course, because gold is denser. 50 kilograms of gold sounds like a lot, but it actually doesn't look like much. Even this small wooden box is not full. Su Yi glanced at the information displayed on the trading platform. It was indeed gold, and it was pure gold with a purity of over 99.99%. But looking at the gold coins, he couldn't help but think of another question. The gold is all in the form of gold coins, with some intricate reliefs carved on them. If he takes it back like this, how to sell it is a big problem. He can't buy a set of equipment to melt all the gold, right? After thinking about it, Su Yi directly expressed his concerns to Wei Wei. There is nothing to hide. The existence of the trading platform is definitely the biggest secret in their respective worlds for members like them. After Wei Wei got the food from him, she had to find a way to conceal the source of the food. So she understood the problem he mentioned and said immediately, "This is simple. You can make them whatever you want." As soon as the voice fell, her red eyes seemed to, not as if, but really ignited a flame. Su Yi only felt a terrifying breath bursting out of her. The next moment, the hot flame appeared out of thin air, and in an instant, the pile of gold coins melted into a ball of gold water, which was bound by an invisible force, and floated in the air. The trading platform does not allow mutual attacks, and there are very strict contract terms and restrictions, but it does not prevent members from using their abilities in the space. When Su Yi heard Wei Wei talking about the elves and the water of life, he could probably guess that she was probably from a fantasy magic world. But when he saw their supernatural power with his own eyes, the shock he felt was still indescribable. Awesome. After the shock, he could only give a 2-word evaluation. Wei Wei tilted her head and asked, "What kind of gold is easier to sell there?" Su Yi came back to his senses and quickly described the appearance of the gold ingot to her. He thought Wei Wei should have some similar magic that could control the gold water to become what she wanted. Unexpectedly, after figuring out what the gold ingot looked like, Wei Wei actually put her slender hands directly into the suspended thick gold water and quickly rubbed out a solid big ingot for him. Su Yi, what kind of ruthless iron hand is this? When you were learning magic, didn't anyone tell you that you were not allowed to use magic in front of muggles? Chapter 3. until he left the trading platform and returned to his little nest in Blue Star. Suyi looked at the still heated gold ingots in the box, and everyone was still confused. The melting point of gold is not considered high among metals, but it must be over 1000 degrees. If a normal person touches the molten gold water, his bones will probably be burned to ashes. Is it scientific to rub gold water directly with your hands without even breaking the skin? Is this reasonable? What the hell? Yi secretly cursed for being nosy, and then looked at the 10 gold ingots in front of him with his heart beating wildly. Point 1 is a full 5 kilograms, a total of 50 kilograms according to the current gold price. The total price of this box of items exceeds 27 million. Even if he sells through abnormal channels, he can still get at least more than 20 million. The work problem that had troubled him for a while was finally solved. Wait, work? Why do I need to work when I have so much gold? After we finish this job and get the food, we will fire this idiot boss and superior. Yi already has a plan. First go and exchange some of the gold for money, and then use the money to buy this batch of grain that the factory cannot use at all. It is difficult to handle large-scale grain transactions without qualifications, but now the factory is eager to get rid of this batch of grain, and he is the person in charge of this matter, so there is too much room for maneuver. Fortunately, he has this relationship. Otherwise Suyi would not dare to say that he will be able to supply Weiwu's large demand for food. But the premise of everything is that he must first cash out the gold. The state has relatively strict supervision over gold trading. A small amount is fine, but a large amount may mean you have to go in and drink tea. That's sloppy. She should be asked to rub genuine bao into a smaller size. Looking at the large gold weight weighing 5 kilograms, Suyi couldn't help but scratch his head. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't come up with a good solution, so he had to go out temporarily and buy an angle grinder. I didn't care whether some gold chips would be lost during the cutting process, so I picked up a gold ingot and cut it into pieces. It was directly cut into 8 gold nuggets ranging in weight from 500 grams to 1000 grams. The next step is how to deal with it. It is actually feasible to take it directly to a gold store to sell it. If he spreads out more, he shouldn't be targeted. Even if he shoots a few kilograms, it's passed down from our ancestors, so it's no problem if my ancestors are rich, right? But if you want to go one step further and sell more, formal channels like gold shops will definitely not work. I don't know if AOLIU can eat this. Looking at a number on his phone, Suyi hesitated whether to call and ask. As a factory purchaser, there will naturally be some suppliers who will give him some small gifts from time to time. These small gifts may not be useful to him, but they are certainly valuable. Suyi usually chooses to take action. Most of the time, things will be delivered to this old LIU. As far as he knew, LIU's business was quite big, and he occasionally produced a bottle or two of wine or some tea. For LIU, he can only be regarded as a scrap customer. Some big clients will come to him to sell luxury goods, cars, and even antiques, calligraphy, and paintings worth hundreds of thousands or millions. Of course, LIU was not an underground gangster, and Suyi couldn't get in touch with such a person. He is an intermediary who specializes in this business, and there are other people behind him. Although intermediaries are often criticized for being too dark, they can indeed help people avoid a lot of trouble in many cases. Ask first and then tell. Yi called directly, and the call was quickly connected. After a brief greeting, he went straight to the topic. Old LIU, I have some gold in my hand. I wonder if you can take it. Gold. Old LIU on the other end of the phone was stunned for a moment. He obviously didn't expect Suyi, a small factory purchasing manager, to have such a good thing in his hands, but he still said quickly, what's the origin? Heirloom, understood. Old LIU chuckled. Don't worry, Zio-Su, gold is hard currency. I'll handle it for you, no matter how many brothers you have. 3 kilograms. Suyi reported a number that he had thought about for a long time. Hiss, brother Su, you have made a fortune. 3 kilograms can be eaten, but the price must be slightly lower than the price of gold on the market. Let's see if you can accept it. Old Liu was not too surprised when he heard this. Normally, a few hundred grams or even a kilogram of gold can be sold directly through the regular procedures of a gold store. Where is the use of his method? The two discussed it carefully and finally agreed to meet at a high-end business club in the center of Jiangcheng City within an hour. This kind of place has enough confidentiality and is located in a downtown area, so it is not afraid of special circumstances. Of course, the most important thing is that 3 kilograms of gold is a lot less, but it is actually not a lot more point, even based on the gold price. On the market, it is only over 1.6 million Kaishu coins. The business Liu and the others are in is no different from other industries. It is a huge profit in itself. The credibility and reputation are more important than some petty profits, and they will not lose their own brand for these 100 million point. After hanging up the phone, Su Yi began to settle accounts. The price Liu gave him was about 450 Kaishu coins for 1 gram of gold. Of course, this was a preliminary estimate. Professionals would check the purity of the gold at that time, and the specific price would depend on the purity point. According to the price of 450 yuan per gram, Su Yi could get 1.35 million yuan by selling 3 kilograms of gold to Liu. If the first batch of 500 tons of grain promised to Wei was all rice, the price of 500 tons of old rice in the factory was less than 2 yuan per kilogram, and it could be done within 1 million yuan point with more than 300,000 yuan left to purchase some fruits, vegetables and frozen meat. There would be no problem. To collect 10 tons, this batch of gold was enough for him to complete his first transaction. He immediately picked out 3 pieces from the pile of cut gold bars, weighing about 3.4 kilograms, stuffed them into his backpack, and went out. The rest were all put into his private space. At about 7 o'clock in the evening, Su Yi arrived at the business club he had agreed to meet before, and found Liu in a very hidden private room. Involving a transaction of millions. Liu, the intermediary, naturally could not make the decision. At this time, there were already 4 or 5 people Su Yi did not know waiting in the private room. There were also some tools placed around. The transaction process was simpler than Su Yi had thought. He took out the gold, and Liu's people took out professional equipment to check it, and quoted a price of 470 per gram, which was higher than the previous estimate. A total of 3,439.257 grams of gold, a total price of 1,616,450.79. Liu took the initiative to round up the total for him, a total of 1.62 million, and transferred the money in person. The account for the transfer was a foreign trade company, and the note was the virtual asset transfer fee. The tax issue would be solved there, and the money Su Yi received was a clean personal income after tax. He carefully checked the process and confirmed that there was no problem, and the transaction was successfully completed. The other party did not ask about the source of the gold throughout the process, and even except Liu and Su Yi chatted a few words, no one else said a word. This is called professionalism. After politely declining Liu's proposal to treat him to a meal, he was politely sent out. Just like I guessed before, people who do this kind of work won't do the trick of cheating for a few 100,000. Looking at the extra 1 million in the card, Su Yi breathed a sigh of relief. I felt that the world was wide open. He then looked around and prepared to find a place to have dinner, but just at this moment, a phone call came in. It was the brother-in-law of the factory owner, Su Yi's new stupid boss, Liu Sheng. Calling at this time. It's obvious that this guy wants to ask about the batch of grain. If it was a few hours ago, it would be a bit difficult for Su Yi to answer the phone. If he didn't answer it, he was afraid that he would lose his job. If he answered it, he would probably be scolded and become someone's punching bag. But now the situation is a little different. Su Yi sneered and answered the call directly. Hello, who is this? I'm Liu Sheng. You are? Oh, it's Liu. It's a bit noisy. I'll hang up first. Wait a moment. I'll call you back when I'm free. Chapter 4. Beep beep. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, Liu Sheng looked a little confused. If he heard it right, Su Yi just called him Liu. After a long pause, he finally reacted and slapped the desk. Xian Gang. Xian Gang. then dialed the phone again. However, this time he didn't even hear Suyi's voice, and the phone was hung up directly. Liu Sheng was so angry that he almost smashed the computer in the office. Suyi looked at the continuous calls and directly marked Liu Sheng's number as a harassing call and blocked it in one go. After that, he found a restaurant and had a quiet dinner. As for the furious Liu Sheng, he didn't bother to pay attention to him. Now he wanted the batch of grain in the factory, but it didn't mean that he had to lick Liu Sheng. Anyway, he didn't plan to take this job. After finishing this job, it was an hour later when he was full and satisfied. At this time, the boss Li Wenyuan called as expected. Suyi chose to answer the call. "It's that Xiao Su? I heard that you didn't even answer the call from your supervisor. Is there something urgent?" Apparently, Liu Sheng, the idiot, went to complain to his brother-in-law after being blocked by Suyi. Suyi felt a little funny and said nonchalantly, "It's urgent. I'm having dinner with the customer." Li Wenyuan's eyes lit up. To be honest, as the boss of the factory, he has been under a lot of pressure recently. His wife's idiot brother did such a heaven-defying operation as soon as he entered the factory. When the shareholders knew about it, they were very dissatisfied and asked him to give an explanation. But what explanation could he give? He couldn't kick his brother-in-law out, right? "Do you still want your wife?" Helplessly, he could only listen to Liu Sheng's advice and let Suyi, who had always performed well in the purchasing department, take the blame. When Suyi couldn't bear it anymore and resigned, his lucrative position would be vacant, and he could naturally arrange his own people for other shareholders to appease the dissatisfied shareholders. Yes. Li Wenyuan didn't think Suyi could handle this batch of grain. He was asked to do this just to force him to leave. But now, from what Suyi said, it seemed that he was talking about business with customers. This made Li Wenyuan feel a little hopeful. What if Suyi could really do it? Not only could he be proud in front of the shareholders, but he wouldn't have to fire Suyi, who was capable of doing things in this kind of privately run small factory. All the key positions were filled by the cronies arranged by the factory's senior management. They were not good at doing things, but they were good at making a living by doing side jobs. There were only so many people who could work. If it wasn't for the last resort, Li Wenyuan really didn't want to fire Suyi and replace him with a completely ignorant idiot. "No, I eat alone, Su." Li's answer shattered the glimmer of hope that Li Wenyuan had just raised, and his face suddenly turned cold. After a moment of hesitation, he turned to ask, "How is the grain issue handled?" He was ready to give the employee who was about to be forced out by him a warning. Suyi said indifferently, "I contacted a boss and the negotiation is almost done. The first batch will only take the 500 tons of rice, and the price will be based on our previous purchase price, but the freight will be paid by the factory. If Mr. Li thinks it's okay, we can arrange the loading tomorrow morning and pay on the spot." Li Wenyuan was stunned for a moment and then hurriedly said, "Is it really done? Which boss? Where do you want to transport the grain? If it's too far, I'm afraid the freight will have to be discussed carefully. It would take at least 10 semi-trailers to transport all the 500 tons of grain. If it is sent thousands of kilometers away, the freight will be hundreds of thousands, which is more than the loss of the grain itself. Of course, I have to ask clearly first. The boss is a relative of mine. He asked me to take full charge of this matter. The place should be a warehouse in the suburbs of Jiangcheng, which will not exceed 100 kilometers. Li Wenyuan quickly calculated the freight fee in his mind and then said, okay, the factory will pay for the freight. I will arrange the car now." The grain factory is not big, with less than 200 people. As the largest shareholder and boss, Li Wenyuan has a net worth of about 50 to 60 million. In a place like Jiangcheng, it can only be considered as not as good as the rich, but better than the poor. But no matter what, the loss of a few 100,000 in the factory is nothing to him. He can fill this hole for his brother-in-law. But rich people like him who are neither good nor bad are often more stingy than ordinary people, and naturally don't want to pay to fill the hole. And Suyi's move not only allows him to not pay to fill the loss, but also makes the shareholders shut up. It is undoubtedly the best result for him. After talking for a while, Li Wenyuan hung up the phone happily. Suyi sneered, He had worked in the food processing factory for 3 years and was very familiar with the situation there. This kind of small private factory had a lot of problems, whether in terms of hygiene or production process. Although he wanted this batch of grain, it could be considered a win-win cooperation with Li Wenyuan and Liu Sheng. But these two wanted him to take the blame first. Su Yi was not without temper. It was impossible for him to help them deal with the trouble and then just leave. Laugh. You will soon stop laughing. After saying that, he turned and dialed another number. As a factory purchaser, he was very familiar with the business of renting temporary warehouses. He immediately rented a small warehouse in a logistics distribution center in the suburbs of Jiangcheng to store grain tomorrow. Early the next morning, Su Yi rushed to the factory. It is estimated that Li Wenyuan knew that Liu Sheng and Su Yi had conflicts, so Liu Sheng, the nominal head of the purchasing department, did not show up today. Li Wenyuan came to see it himself and left. So Su Yi was both the person in charge of selling grain on the factory side and the person in charge of receiving grain on the other side. Under his deliberate leniency, many unimportant things were naturally omitted. No one even asked whether the buyer of grain was an individual or a company and what the purchase was for. Signing contracts, loading grain, and paying money. All in one go. Su Yi arrived at the factory at 8 in the morning, and before 11 in the afternoon, 10 semi-trailers loaded with grain had arrived at the suburban warehouse he rented. Before 2 in the afternoon, all 500 tons of grain had been moved into the warehouse. After treating the driver and the porter to a meal, the first batch of 500 tons of food was all in hand. He only had more than 600,000 of the more than 1.6 million Jiaozhou coins he had obtained yesterday. There was no rush for the remaining 10 tons of fruits, vegetables and meat. After everyone else left, he carefully checked the interior of the warehouse and confirmed that there was no surveillance or anything like that inside. He directly put all the food into the storage space dedicated to trading items. Then he went straight to the trading platform and contacted Wei to come and collect the goods. When she saw Su Yi transfer 500 tons of food through the trading space, Wei's red eyes flashed with surprise and surprise that were difficult to conceal. I actually raised so much food so quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 5. Is 500 tons of grain a lot? In fact, for Wei, an imperial princess from another world, not much. Even for her city-state, which had run out of ammunition and food, it was not much. There are more than 30,000 soldiers and more than 300,000 civilians in her city-state. The 500 tons of grain placed in her place, even if strictly distributed to ensure that no one in the city starved to death, would only be enough for 3 days at most. What really surprised Wei was the speed at which Su Yi raised food. In less than a day, 500 tons of grain were raised. In her opinion, bulk grain is a strategic material, no matter where it is. And it is absolutely impossible for ordinary people to obtain so much grain in a short period of time. So we guessed that Su Yi was definitely a big shot with a high status in his world. Having such a person as her first partner on the trading platform is definitely a good thing in her opinion. When she saw the grain, Wei already had plans to establish a good relationship with the other party and make long-term transactions. Even Wei's eyes flashed and she thought of something. After all, people cannot understand things beyond their own cognition. It is still a bit difficult for a feudal lord from another world to understand how abundant basic materials are in modern society after industrialization. Su Yi didn't know what the princess in front of him was thinking. After hearing her thanks, he just said politely, "That's right. Miss Wei is too polite. 10 tons of fruits, vegetables and meat should be given to you tomorrow. If you need it, I can raise 1,000 tons of food in 3 days. There are still 1,000 tons of flour that have not been processed in the factory, and that stuff is the biggest money loser. It is definitely easier to buy than this batch of rice. 1,000 tons. Of course it is necessary." Wei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said quickly, "Is it still these rice?" "That's not true. It's a batch of flour. The products in different worlds may be different. The wheat and rice on Blue Star may not be available in Wei's world, and she may not necessarily know how to use them. But the great thing about the trading platform is that after Su Yi proposed what he wanted to trade, the platform would use an incomprehensible way to let Wee know what it was, how to use it, and what its use was. The reverse is also true. The cost of understanding is greatly reduced. After understanding what flour is. Wee naturally will not let go of these 1,000 tons of flour, considering that the calories provided by rice and noodles were about the same. She proposed the same price as yesterday, or 1 kilogram of gold for 10 tons of grain. However, Suyi didn't really want gold anymore. The main reason is that he still doesn't know how to sell the more than 40 kilograms of gold left on his hands. If he dared to ask that old Liu to sell so much gold at once, he was afraid that his body would appear in the river tomorrow morning. People don't want to smash signs because of small profits. But dozens of kilograms of gold of unknown origin are not small profits, enough to make people take risks, although it only costs tens of millions. Gold, a hard currency, still has no origin and cannot be traced. For some wealthy people, the actual value is much higher than the tens of millions in regulated cash. He thought for a while and said, I wonder if Miss Wee has the kind of props that even people who don't know magic can use. Just something that can be used for self-defense. If anything, it's better to trade this with force at his side. He also had the confidence to use the remaining gold on hand without fear of being cheated. Hearing his request, Wee raised her eyebrows, then showed a playful smile. I do have magic props that ordinary people can use, but if Mr. Suyi is worried about safety issues, I have a better suggestion here. As she spoke, a card appeared in her hand. Suyi knows this thing because he also has one. Elementary life transaction permission card. Miss Wee, what do you mean? Suyi narrowed his eyes. Nothing else, or 1,000 tons of grain. How about I give you a powerful elf warrior with both magic and martial arts skills? Wee said with a smile. There seemed to be some impatience in the smile. How strong? Probably a little better than me. Wee spread her hands. Of course, I also have some conditions. If I give her to you, she can be responsible for your safety. You must also ensure her basic living needs and meet some of her reasonable needs. And you must not force her to do anything other than protect your safety. Other than that, she doesn't want to do anything. In case you really can't get along, or her strength can't protect your safety, then I can issue another elementary life transaction permission card to redeem her. These all need to be written into the transaction contract. Wee didn't know much about Suyi's situation, so naturally she didn't know the level of the person she wanted to send to Suyi. I can only use myself as an example. After all, her strength has been demonstrated in front of Suyi before. Suyi pondered for a moment after hearing the words, mainly thinking about whether it would be difficult for a gangster from another world to move around in Blue Star's Kaishu. After a moment he nodded and said, can. As for whether a person from another world will be obedient after going to Blue Star, he does not need to consider it. Trading creatures through the primary life trading permit card is limited by the trading platform. You can only obey the orders of the buyer, take whatever you want, and life and death are all in the buyer's mind. To put it bluntly, it is no different from being a slave. That's why Wee has so many concerns and puts forward a lot of preconditions as the buyer. Suyi does not have these concerns. After getting a positive answer, Wee visibly breathed a sigh of relief, as if a big stone fell from her heart. Then she hurriedly said, wait a moment. I'll bring the person over. As she said that, she disappeared in the trading space. A moment later, Wee appeared in the hall where the two were talking about business with a person. Her primary life trading permit card was naturally gone. After seeing the person she brought, even though Suyi had seen many entertainment works and had a certain psychological preparation for the so-called elves to be very good looking, he still couldn't help but take a breath. This damn, it seems a little too beautiful, right? Seizu's skin is not as rough as the white people on Blue Star. It is white and extremely delicate. Her facial features are delicate and soft. Her eyes are shining when she smiles, and there is a playful dimple at the corner of her mouth. She stood there without saying a word, but people couldn't help but like her, as if she was born to be liked. At this moment, Suyi seemed to suddenly understand what Kozhis, the goddess of Luo River, said. Bright eyes and good looks, with a beautiful face. Gorgeous and elegant, calm and leisurely, tender and charming, charming in words, so beautiful. I Guess you are Mr. Suyi. My name is Yuling, and I'm honored to be your guardian knight. The tall and beautiful elf walked in front of Suyi, put one hand on her chest, and gave him a knight's salute from another world. Suyi was stunned for a moment, and looked at Wei. Wei explained, in our world, what you want her to do, is to make her your guardian knight. After making the oath of protection, she needs to fulfill her promise throughout her life. If she betrays one day, she will be burned by the fire of hell. The punishment of burning by the fire of hell. Suyi raised his eyebrows. Oh, this is part of the oath. There is no actual binding force, but don't worry, she is willing to make the oath today, and she will definitely do it. I understand. It's just like swearing that the sky will hit you with 5 thunders. Suyi nodded, but didn't care. Anyway, there are stronger constraints on the trading platform. Under Wei Wu's guidance, he put his hand on Yuling's head, and then Wei Wu read some words that Suyi sounded incomprehensible, and the ceremony was completed. The two of them made up a contract for the trading platform, and this beautiful elf became Suyi's person. Under the warehouse of Blue Star, looking at the beautiful elf beside him, Suyi was still a little overwhelmed for a while. It's okay to pick up a pretty elf from another world for no reason. But after thinking about it carefully, he felt that something was wrong. Chapter 6. According to Wei Wu, she is considered to be a relatively capable fighter in that world. And Yuling is stronger than her in this world with extraordinary power. The value of a strong person should not be comparable to 1,000 tons of food, right? Suyi didn't think so much before. Anyway, with the trading platform as a guarantee, Wei Wu couldn't do anything. But now that he thinks about it carefully, he still feels something is wrong. Fortunately, the person involved is here now, so he asked his doubts directly. Yuling was not surprised that he would ask this, and answered calmly, because if I continue to stay there, I can't bring much help to Princess Wei Wu with my own strength, but it will be a trouble. The coalition forces that attacked Mengchuan City have many reasons to start this war, and I happen to be one of them. As long as I leave Mengchuan City, the part of the coalition forces that came for me will withdraw, and the pressure on Mengchuan City will be greatly reduced. Before, I had nowhere to go. Princess Wei Wu took me in under great pressure because of her friendship with the elves and me. Now that I have a better place to live and relieve the pressure on Mengchuan City, I will naturally not ask for more. So, your identity is not ordinary? Suyi looked at this beautiful elf with some surprise. He thought Yuling was Wei Wu's maid or personal guard, so she could be sold to another world by Wei Wu, the Lord. Casually. Now it seems that there seems to be another hidden story. That's another story. Yuling smiled helplessly and briefly explained the whole story. In fact, it's not complicated. It's just a cliched story of racial infighting. The Moon Elf tribe she belonged to was once the most powerful tribe in the Elf Kingdom, controlling the most important fountain of life in the Elf tribe. Later, a tribe called Dark Elves in the Elf Kingdom joined forces with the Orcs to defeat the Moon Elves and became the new master of the Elf Kingdom. Ling was a princess of a fallen country, but on the eve of the fall of the country, the high priest of the Moon Elf tribe used magic to seal the core of the fountain of life of the Elf tribe, or thing called vitality, in Yuling's body, and let her take away all the spring water accumulated in the fountain of life. What is the concept? The spring water of the fountain of life flows into the lake, and after being diluted countless times, it is a world famous moon lake in their place. The water in the lake is not called water, that thing is called life essence. The life essence is diluted countless times again, and it is a kind of water of life that Wei Wu traded to Suyi before. It can be said that this fountain of life is the most precious wealth of the elves. After losing its core component, this thing has now fallen into a state of suspension. No wonder the new owner of the Elf Kingdom went to great lengths to find her, the princess of the previous dynasty, and forced Wei Wu to send her to another world. I roughly understand. After understanding Yuling's identity and background, Suyi had no doubts about this transaction. If he had to say something, he felt that he might have lost money in this matter. Obviously, she accepted Yuling to come to Blue Star and helped Wei Wu a lot, but this woman actually asked him for 1,000 tons of food. She is really conscienceless. After a simple mutual understanding, Suyi explained some precautions to Yuling. and then took her out of the warehouse. Suyi had no specific idea of how strong Yuling was. However, after seeing her twist a rubber as thick as a baby's arm in the corner of the warehouse into a twist, he knew it was safe. With Yuling protecting him, those underground forces that are not worthy of being on the stage will definitely not be able to do anything to him. He can rest assured to give all the gold in his hands through Liu. This kind of thing should be done sooner rather than later. Suyi immediately contacted Liu again and asked for a trade of 20 kilograms of gold. This time Liu did not dare to agree directly. He only said that he would ask the boss above and asked Suyi to wait for news. It was expected, so he was not surprised. After all these things were resolved, Suyi realized that there seemed to be nothing to do for a while. It was just after 5 o'clock in the evening. He looked at Yuling, who was sitting quietly in the passenger seat. Did you bring a change of clothes? How about I take you to buy a few sets of clothes? There is a special magic circle in my clothes, which can be self-cleaning and does not need to be changed. Yuling shook her head absent-mindedly. Although this is only the suburbs of Jiangcheng, the various buildings and vehicles on the road still shocked her, a visitor from another world. When she heard that Wu Wei was going to send her to a strange world before coming here, she never expected that she would come to such a strange place. Everything here seems to be different from the place she was in before. It is inevitable that she will be attracted by all kinds of novel things. However, she is introverted. Seeing that Suyi has been communicating with others through the phone and is still driving and looks very busy, she did not ask directly. What a good thing. Suyi took the time to glance at the beautiful long skirt on her body and decided to ask Wu Wei for some things in this regard in the future. Clothes that don't need to be washed will definitely sell well. But one thing is one thing about buying clothes. Suyi still insisted. Your clothes are quite different from the mainstream style here. If you keep wearing this, you will inevitably look different when you go out. Let's buy you a few sets. It's well reasoned and convincing. Yuling didn't insist on wearing her own clothes all the time. Hearing this, she said softly, okay, I'll listen to your arrangement. Suyi nodded with satisfaction and drove straight to the mall. Black silk, white silk, JK, all. He didn't dare to imagine how good it would be for Yuling, who looked like a perfect figure for clothes. In fact, these are all by the way. Suyi mainly wants to buy her a few sets of clothes so that she doesn't look so different and help her quickly adapt to modern life. That's all. In addition to clothes, she has to buy her some other things, for example, mobile phones. This is a necessity for integrating into the life of Blue Star. If she doesn't know how to use it, she can learn it slowly. Anyway, Suyi doesn't need this money now. As for the problem of language barrier, it is easier to solve. He had seen it in the points mall of the trading platform before. There is a prop that is one level lower than the World Language Penetration card, called the World Language Penetration card. After using it, people can quickly master all the languages of a world. The selling price only requires 10 points at present. Suyi and Wu Wei have completed a transaction, and he has obtained 8 points at this rate. He thinks that, after trading the 10 tons of fruits, vegetables and meat or the remaining 1000 tons of flour, the points will be enough. Then just give her a whole card. This is much simpler than teaching her to learn Kyoshi language from scratch. Chapter 7. Suyi did not go to any high-end shopping malls like SKP, but found a Kyanda Plaza nearby. It was similar to what he had guessed before he came. As soon as he took Yuling out of the parking lot, she became the focus of the crowd in the mall. There was no way the elf girl was too beautiful. And I don't know if her skirt was blessed by some magic. Not only was it gorgeous, but the skirt itself seemed to have its own lighting. When they arrived at a dimly lit place, the styles of other people's paintings seemed to have walked into a black and white photo, and she was like the only person with color in this photo. Flowing light, gorgeous and eye-catching. It's hard not to attract attention. After a while, a man holding a camera came over. Hello, beautiful girl. I'm a street photography blogger on a certain audio platform. You are so beautiful, and your temperament is the best among the girls I have ever seen. I want to take a few photos of you, okay? It will take a little time of yours, and it will be done soon. As he said, he looked at Yuling with anticipation. Just looking at the image of this beautiful woman in front of him, He knew that it would definitely be a hit after the film was uploaded to the internet without taking any photos. That's all money. As for being rejected, he didn't even think about it. In his opinion, Yuling's outfit was just for cosplay. People like this would be so happy if they met a professional photographer taking pictures on the street. How could they refuse? If the photos taken by the time are satisfactory, they can probably add wedge at point, although adding may not necessarily make a difference. Having the contact information of such a beautiful woman is once again a capital to brag about when gathering with friends. It may even continue to cooperate in the future and produce more photos and the like to attract traffic to their own video account. As for Suyi, who was walking with Yuling, the photographer didn't even look at him. He is indeed handsome, not worse than the readers, but his dressing style is just like that of an ordinary person. Nothing eye-catching. He is indeed a natural handsome guy. But on the internet, as long as the appearance is not as exaggerated as Yuling, everyone will not be very different if they put on makeup and edit the pictures. Moreover, his street photography account originally focused on taking pictures of beautiful women, and no one would watch his pictures of men. As for Su Yitung's disagreement with him taking photos of Yuling, just kidding. What era is this? How can a woman need the consent of her male companion to take photos? However, under the photographer's expectant gaze, Yuling looked at him blankly with her big eyes, and then looked at Suyi, as if waiting for him to make a decision. Suyi said without thinking, "Sorry, we have something else to do. It's not convenient now." If this guy in front of him is really a street photography blogger with a certain number of fans, with Yuling's image and temperament, he will definitely become popular after taking a wave of photos. But the problem is that Yuling is an illegal resident. Suyi doesn't want her to show up on the internet. Is it not okay for a little while? I'll take a few photos, quickly. The photographer was a little anxious when he heard this. He had been squatting for an afternoon and finally squatted for such a beautiful one, so naturally he didn't want to let it go. "Sorry, I don't have time." She is more introverted, doesn't like to be photographed, and doesn't like to be posted on the internet. So Yi smiled, ignored him, and walked into the mall with Yuling. At this point, the photographer had to give up, even though he was still a little unwilling. Although he wanted to secretly take a few photos, he gave up this dangerous idea when he remembered the warning in Suyi's words just now. Yuling is so beautiful, it will definitely go viral if the photos are posted online. If he does this when the other party explicitly refuses to take pictures, he may be sued. If the other party is serious, he doesn't want to take this risk. It didn't take long to go shopping in the mall. Although Yuling is very curious about everything here, she is introverted, and her main point is to look more and talk less from beginning to end. What clothes to buy, even what style of underwear, are all decided by Suyi. Sometimes when some shop assistants see that she is beautiful and want to say a few words to her or take a photo with her, Suyi always refuses. Don't ask. If you ask, she is deaf and dumb, and her personality is introverted. She can't understand what you are saying and doesn't want to communicate with you. So, under the regretful gazes of countless shop assistants, Yuling followed Suyi, carrying large and small bags in her hands, and entered a hot pot restaurant in a daze. The good news is that as an elf, she has no dietary restrictions and can eat both meat and vegetables. The bad news is that, although Yuling is strong, she can't eat spicy food. Seeing her sweating and her face flushed from the spiciness, Suyi could only ask the shop assistant to change a simmering hot pot in the middle of the meal with some amusement. It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening when they came out of dinner. Suyi took Yuling to the first floor of the mall to buy her a mobile phone. He had used his own mobile phone for a long time, and he happened to have money at this time, so he could also change it at the same time. Then he would apply for a phone card for her. It didn't matter that Yuling didn't have an ID card. Suyi had it, and now phone cards could open secondary cards, so it wasn't a big problem. He didn't play mobile games, so he didn't have high requirements for mobile phones. It just needed to be reliable enough and not freeze or disconnect from the network. In this regard, Huawei was naturally the one that met his requirements the most. So there was no need to hesitate when choosing a mobile phone brand. He went straight to the Huawei counter on the first floor. However, what Suyi didn't expect was that as soon as he entered the store, he met an acquaintance. It's not right to say that they are acquaintances. It can only be said that they have met once and had a meal together. To put it bluntly, they are blind date partners 3 years after graduation. He is already 25 years old, and his family has been urging him to find a partner. Just last month, Suyi was half urged and half driven by his mother to go on his first blind date in his life. The girl is a relative of the neighbor downstairs in his hometown, named Zeolulu. She is the same age as Suyi. Her appearance is about 60 points or 70 points. Occupation: she stays at home to take the civil service exam. I heard that she will also do live broadcasts on a certain audio platform after studying, and her monthly income is about 3,000 to 5,000 yuan. It can be said that the buffs are fully stacked. The actual situation did not surprise him. The girl made a lot of messy requests as soon as she came, such as handing over the salary after being together, that Suyi needs to give her at least 8,000 yuan a month to support her civil service exam, that live broadcasting is her hobby, and that Suyi can't control the occasional interaction with fans. This is still the more aggressive one. There are more messy requests to this. Suyi's answer was of course, yes, yes, yes. Anyway, he didn't plan to make it, so just obey. Originally, he wanted to leave after eating and not contact him again. But he never expected that this girl, who didn't know if she was stupid, saw him keep saying yes, 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 you are right, and really thought that Suyi accepted all his conditions. After returning, she sent various messages to Suyi every day, and even took the initiative to ask him for red envelopes and milk tea. After being ignored by him countless times, she was still not discouraged. In the end, Suyi was so annoyed that he blocked her directly, and then he was at peace. After telling his mother about the situation, his mother knew that it was such a weirdo, and she didn't say anything. He thought that the matter was over here. Unexpectedly, he took Yuling out to buy a mobile phone and met this guy again. What a bad fate this is. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. It's embarrassing enough to run into a blind date whom you have blocked. What's more frightening is that the other party doesn't feel embarrassed. As soon as Suyi and Yuling entered the store, they glared at Zeolulu. Suyi, Zeo. Lulu was obviously stunned for a moment, but then she showed resentment in her eyes. She pulled the enemy brother who she didn't know where to find and walked straight over. She didn't care about the current occasion at all and asked directly, "Why did you delete my WeChat?" "Because you have that serious disease." Suyi's mouth twitched and then shook his head, too lazy to pay attention to her. The real version T0 does not refer to a certain gender, but to those groups who throw tantrums and act like scoundrels when encountering something. This is a serious version T0. Why bother to argue with her? Hurry up and finish the business and leave. I have to arrange a place for Yuling later. I'm talking to you. Can't you hear me? However, he didn't want to pay attention, but Zeolulu was relentless. He actually grabbed Suyi's arm in public, as if he would not let him go unless he gave an explanation today. She is hostile to you. Do you need me to deal with it? You. Ling's eyes turned cold, but she remembered what Suyi had told her before, so she did not do it directly, but leaned over to Suyi's ear and asked. Suyi thought for a moment and whispered, "Do you have the kind of magic that does not hurt people's lives, but makes people feel uncomfortable? If she really pesters her, teach her a lesson." The two communicated in the language of Yuling's world, and their voices were very low, so they were not afraid of being heard. Zeolulu saw that Suyi still ignored her and was talking intimately with an unbelievably beautiful woman next to her, and she was even more unhappy. She pointed at him and said to Yuling loudly, "Sister, I think you look okay, but I kindly remind you that this is not a good person, a pure scumbag. Don't think he is intimate with you now. If you dare to ask him for a small request, he will immediately scam you and run away. She looked confident, as if she was really a victim of Suyi's scumbag. Suyi was not angry when she heard her words, but was a little curious. With her appearance, how could she dare to say I think you look okay to Yuling? Unfortunately, Yuling didn't understand what she was saying at all. Seeing her pointing at Suyi and shouting loudly, her eyes moved, wondering if this was considered entanglement, and whether she should take action. Fortunately, the store also noticed what was happening here at this time, and the store manager hurried over and said, "Do you two have anything to talk about? We have a lounge in our store. If you have something to say, why don't you go to the lounge to talk in detail?" The words were very euphemistic, but the meaning was very clear. You guys can go wherever you want to quarrel, but don't quarrel in my store. I still need to do business. Suyi heard this and said, "I'm sorry, I just brought my girlfriend here to buy a mobile phone. I don't know this person at all. I came to your store to buy things, and I met this kind of inexplicable person. You have to deal with it for me, right?" The store manager obviously also heard this meaning. He immediately looked at Zeololu and said politely with an apologetic look, "Madam, this is a public place after all. If we have any problems, why don't we discuss them privately?" However, Zeololu's focus was completely different from that of normal people. She directly ignored the store manager's words and pointed at Suyi and said, "Why did you really believe his lies that he was here to buy a mobile phone for someone else? He is such a miser. He couldn't even give a 520 red envelope on the festival last month, and he was willing to give a mobile phone to his girlfriend." Suyi, who had been too lazy to pay attention to her, was really a little bit overwhelmed now. "No, you want a red envelope for the Zangyuan festival? Are you going to reincarnate? And who are you, sister? Get it clear. We just met once and had a meal once. I paid for the meal, and I haven't asked you to pay for the meal yet. Why should I give you a red envelope?" Look, he started to yell at me. This guy is a violent man at first glance. Zeololu still had a strange angle. Suyi, seeing his speechless look, Yuling also knew that it was time for her to take action. Teach her a lesson, but don't hurt her life. Just use that magic. I don't know what she remembered. Yuling, who had always been very calm, suddenly had a slightly naughty arc at the corner of her mouth. But unfortunately no one saw this scene. Then the corner of her mouth moved, and she whispered a spell. Zeololu, who was still holding her head up and accusing Suyi, suddenly changed her face. She only felt a chill from the top of her head to her coccyx. The feeling of being about to burst out made her feel very bad, and she tried to control her sphincter to limit it a little. But the magic from another world was not something she, an ordinary person, could withstand. The next moment, accompanied by a series of puff sounds under the gaze of the surrounding spectators, her thick yellow soup broke free from all restraints and gushed out. Unfortunately, Zeololu was wearing a skirt today. The onlookers' faces suddenly changed, and they quickly covered their noses and fled. "Oh my god, someone is pooping in the mobile phone store. Ugh, I just finished dinner and was thinking of taking a walk. This is too outrageous. I'm vomiting. Damn, why did she suddenly start to poop? Is she sick? Stay away, be careful of infection." Yi was also stunned and pulled Yuling back again and again. At the same time, he glanced at Yuling and found the cunning in her eyes and the smile on her mouth, guessing that it was her handiwork, and whispered, "This won't happen." While speaking, he glanced at Zeololu again. The woman was already stunned on the spot, but the spray had not stopped. Listening to the continuous puff sound, Suyi was a little worried for a while whether she would be dehydrated directly. No, she will probably have diarrhea for 3 days and lose a few pounds, but her life is not in danger. Then there will be a period of weakness for about 10 days, and then it will be fine, and there will be no sequelae. Well, there will be no sequelae. At most she will live on another planet in the future. Suyi's mouth twitched, but he didn't sympathize with this guy at all. Don't you like to make a fool of yourself in public? Then just be conspicuous and do it. As for Yuling, who took action to protect herself, He certainly wouldn't blame her. Fortunately, this store is big enough and the internal ventilation system is quite developed. You can't smell any bad smell if you are far away. Suyi didn't care about Zeolulu, who was being carried to the bathroom by a group of shop assistants. He found a shop assistant from the other end, picked two latest mobile phones, paid for them directly, and left quickly. According to the popularity of Huawei on the internet, someone pooped in their offline store, and it will probably be on the hot search tomorrow. He had to take Yuling away quickly. It was too abstract. Who knew that going out to buy a mobile phone would encounter such a bad thing? Chapter 9. Until Suyi finished all his work and came out of the mall, he was still frightened by the little episode just now. Looking at Yuling, who was sitting quietly in the passenger seat with a normal expression. He suddenly felt that this elf was not that simple. At least Yuling was definitely not as Buddhist and peaceful as she looked on the surface. Suyi saw clearly the gloating look in her eyes after the prank was successful. On the surface, she is a dignified elf princess, but deep in her heart, there is still a little devil, right? After thinking about it, Suyi took a deep breath and prepared to have a good talk with her. Unexpectedly, before he opened his mouth, he heard Yuling say, "Sorry, I didn't control the strength this time. Next time I encounter something similar, I will use a gentler magic." Yi was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "No, I don't mean to blame you. I mean, this magic is good. In the future, when you meet such a difficult but non-threatening person, use this trick, or a similar trick." Lulu is undoubtedly the most annoying and helpless person in modern society. The key is that you really don't have a good way to deal with such a person. Call the police. The police won't work. Can they arrest people and sentence them, or impose administrative penalties just because they make loud noises in public places? Impossible. At most, they can invite people to the police station for mediation, which is basically useless for ordinary people. They can only avoid such people if they are forced to take action by such people. The worst thing they can do is fight. Yuling's magic, which can kill people without anyone noticing, is very effective against this kind of idiot. If I really let you shit in public, are you afraid? Yuling was stunned. She saw Suyi hesitated to speak and thought that Suyi was dissatisfied with her using such a bad magic. Unexpectedly, not only was he not dissatisfied, but he supported him to use this trick next time he encountered a similar situation. This Yuling's calm eyes were vaguely excited, and he nodded quickly. "Okay, I'll listen to you." When the two returned home, it was already past 11 o'clock in the evening. Then Suyi discovered another thing. The place where he lives now is a rental house. 1 bedroom and 1 living room. There is no such thing as a guest bedroom. So the question is, how to sleep? Yuling did not have an ID card, so she couldn't even go out to get a room to sleep. In desperation, Suyi originally planned to go out to get a room to sleep and let her sleep at home. But Yuling was unwilling, saying that he was here to protect Suyi's safety, and it was impossible for him to stay at home as a bodyguard and let the boss go out to live. After some arguing, the two of them magically moved into the hotel together. A suite with 2 rooms, but Yuling stayed in Suyi's room most of the night. It wasn't that something happened that was very popular, it was mainly because she was very curious about mobile phones and kept pestering Suyi to teach her how to use mobile phones. It seemed that because they were getting more and more familiar with each other, Suyi found that Yuling seemed to be releasing her nature. Her image had changed from a dignified and quiet elf princess at the beginning to a lively little girl who was curious about everything. And she had a bad personality and seemed to like to play tricks on people. He didn't know what to say. So, if you don't have a deep relationship with some people, you really don't know how big the contrast between them can be. Yuling pestered her to teach her how to operate the mobile phone all night. In the end, Suyi was so sleepy that he downloaded Tetris on his mobile phone to fool this elf princess. As a result, he woke up at noon the next day and found that Yuling was still playing that Tetris at his bedside. Compared to the first time they met yesterday, Yuling was now wearing the loose pajamas that Suyi bought for her, lying on the bed with her white and tender body crossed behind her, concentrating on her phone with the charging cable connected to the end of the phone. No matter how you look at it, she looks like a homebound internet addicted girl. How can you tell that she is an elf princess. When Suyi woke up, he was facing Yuling Point. As soon as he opened his eyes, his gaze was dragged into the abyss in the lace pajamas. It took a while before he took a breath and came back to his senses, glancing at Yuling, who was concentrating on playing games and seemed to not care about her exposure at all. Suyi kindly reached out and lifted the pajama strap that slipped off her shoulders. Pay attention to your image. Oh. Yuling subconsciously turned sideways and lifted the shoulder strap point. With just such a small action, the originally suppressed behemoth broke free from its restraints and almost jumped out. Suyu took another breath of cold air, then quietly pulled up the air conditioner that was kicked to the side of the bed and covered himself with it, then asked, "Have you been playing all night?" Ling subconsciously glanced out the window and then said in surprise, "Hey, is it already dawn?" "It's already noon." Suyi was a little speechless. "Why don't you go back to your room to sleep? Do you know that this is very dangerous?" "I was planning to go back to sleep after playing for a while, but then I forgot," Yuling said a little embarrassedly. "It's okay. Our elves' work and rest schedule is different from yours, and we can go without sleep for a few days. You are a tough guy who can bend rubber with bare hands. Am I worried about whether you can sleep or not? I'm afraid of accidental discharge." Rubbing his eyebrows, he said helplessly, "Stop playing, pack up, and go out to do things later, okay?" Although Yuling is addicted to games, she is still very obedient to Suyi's words. Hearing this, she turned off the game that had accumulated countless points without hesitation and stood up and stood by the bed. The four eyes met, and after a long time, Suyi tightened the air conditioning quilt covering him. "Don't you need to change clothes? Some of the clothes you bought for me, I don't know how to wear. I will learn from you first," Yuling said very honestly. Suyi thought about it and felt that those clothes had zippers, buttons, belts and so on. It was indeed a bit difficult for someone who had never worn them in another world to wear them by herself. She didn't speak the language, so it was not easy to ask the store clerks directly yesterday. It was right to teach her, but just as he was about to get up, he saw the air conditioning quilt hanging on him and quickly sat back on the bed. "Wait for me for a few minutes, okay?" So you tried to calm down and took deep breaths after a long while. When he felt that he had almost calmed down, as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Yuling, who was wearing pajamas with air leaking on all sides, revealing a large area of white and tender skin, looking at him curiously. "Well, it was in vain. How about you wait for me outside the house, okay?" After a moment, "Come on, which piece of clothing do you not know how to wear? I'll teach you." "It's this weird piece of clothing. I can't fix it on my body." "Wait, you mean the bra?" "Yeah, this should be worn inside, right? I'll take off my clothes first." No, wait a minute. Huh? Why is your nose bleeding?" Healing spell. Chapter 10. After spending nearly a day together, although it was a little incomprehensible, Suyi soon realized a very serious thing. That is, Yuling seemed to have no defense against him, especially when it comes to issues between men and women. If she was so defenseless to everyone, Suyi would not find it strange and would just think that the creatures in the other world were more unrestrained. But when it comes to others, she is not like this. Yuling is very smart and can already understand some simple words, but every time an outsider tried to talk to her, she could clearly guess what the person meant and only needed to nod or shake her head to express her opinion. But she would ask Suyi's opinion before replying to the other party. There was no intention of getting to know and communicating with outsiders at all. If I have to describe it, it's probably that she seemed to regard herself as Suyi's personal property. Suyi didn't know why this happened, but he guessed that it should have nothing to do with the trading platform, but more like some kind of rules in their world. It was probably related to the Guardian Night ceremony that looked quite like that at the time. He couldn't ask Yuling directly about this matter, so he planned to ask about it next time when he traded with Wei Wei. It's not a bad thing anyway. A charming and beautiful elf obeys your orders and has no defense in front of you. He Wished there were more of these good things, except that the healing spell is a bit useless. There is no harm. Let's not talk about some interactions with Yuling for now. Suyi still didn't forget the business. After getting up and washing up, he had a simple lunch and took Yuling to a farm in the suburbs of Jiangcheng Point where he didn't need the 1000 tons of flour right now. And Suyi also planned to leave Liu Sheng and Li Wenyuan alone for a few days, so he didn't rush for now point, but it's better to get the fruits, vegetables and meat, that way he promised to provide quickly, and send them over this amount of fruits, vegetables and meat and the 500 tons of rice, provided before were all trade requests made by Wei when the two sides met for the first time point. The rice has been traded, and the transaction points have been settled, but the fruits, vegetables and meat have not been delivered, so this transaction is not yet completed point. The two did not agree on a specific time at the time. Suyi said that it would take some time to prepare for the fruits, vegetables and meat point. The points of the trading platform are calculated according to the items exchanged in real time, and there is no hard and fast rule that a transaction must be completed within a certain time point. In theory, even if Suyi drags it out for 10 or 8 years, or even becomes a deadbeat and doesn't give it directly point, we can't do anything to him point, but he is obviously not that kind of person. He usually keeps things in mind when he promises others. If it is not done in time, he will feel something in his heart and always feel uncomfortable point. Going out now is to solve this problem point. Meat is easy to deal with. Suyi has a childhood friend whose family runs a restaurant. In recent years, he has gradually taken over the family business. It is a small matter to get a few tons of frozen meat from his channels, but it is not easy for him to get a few tons at a time for things like fruits and vegetables that are difficult to preserve for a long time. After all, the restaurant is so small and not a big hotel point. However, Suyi did get the contact information of a large farm owner in the suburbs of Jiangcheng from him point. With someone to introduce you, it is naturally convenient to get things done point. He had already contacted the owner of the farm last night and arranged to meet this afternoon. Yuanfeng Ecological Farm, that's it. After driving for nearly half an hour, Suyi arrived at the farm located in the southeast suburbs of Jiangcheng, not far from the river. He had read the information of Yuanfeng Farm before coming point. It covers an area of about 5,000 acres, where not only various vegetables and fruits are planted, but also livestock and poultry such as pigs, cattle, sheep, chickens, ducks, and geese are raised. There is also a lake inside the farm, which raises various fish with high economic value point. It is a super large comprehensive ecological farm point. It is said that the investment was more than 100 million yuan point. Otherwise, his childhood friend's family recently planned to cooperate with others to create a catering brand and open branches across the country, requiring a stable supply source. And it would be impossible to get in touch with the owner of such a large farm point. And Suyi came here today, of course, not just for those tons of vegetables and fruits. For such a small amount of things, the boss with a net worth of over 100 million yuan would not come to see him specially point. He wanted to talk about the acquisition of the farm point. Yuanfeng Farm was poorly managed and coupled with the poor overall economy. In the past 2 years, it had long been on the verge of bankruptcy point. The boss also had other businesses, and now life was also difficult. He urgently needed funds to fill the holes elsewhere, so he had the idea of transferring the farm point. As for why Suyi wanted to acquire a farm, it was naturally for the transaction with Wei point. After some research, he found that as long as he had a farm, he could purchase all the grain, fruits, vegetables, and meat that Wei needed in a large amount through the farm in a reasonable and compliant manner. Needless to say, fruits, vegetables and meat are the main commodities planted and raised on the farm point. As for grain, with a farm in hand, it would be too easy to reasonably purchase bulk grain point. Can't I buy it to feed the livestock? Why don't livestock eat feed but grain? Do you understand what ecological farming is? The high cost is my own business. I'm willing to lose money. What do you care? Isn't grain-fed beef also fed with grain? No problem at all. As for why the farm has so much food but no chickens, ducks, Cattle and sheep fed with various grains. Don't ask. If you ask, it's just plague point. It can be said to be a logical closed loop, without any flaws. In contrast, although the food processing factory he is more familiar with can also purchase a large amount of food, it is not easy to deal with fruits, vegetables and meat, and it is easy for people to find problems with these grains that only enter, but not leave point, and it is easy to get fruits, vegetables and meat when setting up a hotel or restaurant, but it is not easy to purchase hundreds of tons of food at a time. Otherwise, we have to solve the problem from the source. This ecological farm is the source, because they had contacted in advance when Suyi's car arrived at the door of the farm office building. A young man in a suit came out enthusiastically. "Is it Mr. Su? Please come in. Our general manager's son is waiting for you in the office. My last name is Zhao, and I'm the manager of the farm. You can just call me Zhao Zhao." From his enthusiastic attitude, it is not difficult to see that the owner of Yuanfeng Farm really wants to package the farm and sell it quickly. When Zhao Zhao received the person who was most likely to be his future boss, he was naturally very attentive. The farm's office building was not very beautiful, and the layout inside was also very ordinary, but it was cleaned very cleanly, giving people a very refreshing feeling. Judging from the traces of cleaning on the ground, it was obviously specially tidied recently. The big boss obviously would not arrange such things on purpose, so these were obviously arranged by Zhao Zhao in front of him. Chapter 11. The owner of Yuanfeng Farm is Sun Wang, a middle-aged and elderly man who is nearly 60 years old but energetic. Although he is a businessman, he appears to be quite decent and meticulous in his work. After Suyi went with the farm managers out to meet with Sun Wang, the two simply exchanged greetings, and Sun Wang took him around the farm himself without saying a word. Letting people go to the farm to see what is grown there will naturally be of great reference value for both parties. To negotiate prices, farms are different from places like factories, in that they cannot be prepared in advance. After all, raising crops and livestock takes time, and there is no possibility of improvising in advance. It is still very useful for reference. Even if he didn't take the initiative to mention it, Suyi would find an excuse to go to the farm and look around. After looking around, he realized that he had underestimated the farm before. The various things grown and cultivated here are themselves an extremely huge wealth. All kinds of modern agricultural facilities are beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The farm as a whole appears to be extremely advanced and well planned. In the words of manager Zhao, the farm adopts a scientific cyclic sowing plan and is currently able to produce tons of different varieties of fresh fruits and vegetables for sale on the market every day. Under this plan, as long as the farm is still operating, there will be a steady stream of crop output in the corresponding season. At that time, Suyi half-jokingly asked manager Zhao if it was possible to expand the variety of crops grown so that the farm could continue production all year round. Manager Zhao told him quite professionally that this could be done in places further south with a warmer climate. But the climate in Jiangcheng is not suitable for this, although off-season planting is nothing compared to current agricultural technology. It is not consistent with the pure natural green ecological agricultural products that Yuanfeng Farm focuses on. It's not easy to sell them once they're grown. Suyi didn't think about how to sell the things he grew, so it was naturally not a problem for him. After knowing that it could be done, I didn't ask any more questions. After looking around, the group returned to Sun Wang's office again. It can be seen that, although Sun Wang is rich, he lives a relatively simple life. There are no arty calligraphy and painting decorations in the entire office, and there are no luxurious things like mahogany desks. Simple and clean. This was Suyi's first impression. After entering this place, Sun Wang was very polite and personally made a cup of tea for Suyi. After a few words of greeting, the two went straight to the topic. Mr. Su also inspected the farm for a while. Do you have any ideas? It's very good. It meets my requirements in all aspects. It can be seen that Mr. Sun and manager Zhao have taken good care of the farm. Su Yi took a sip of tea and gave a pertinent answer. Then, about the farm transfer, Sun Wang asked eagerly, obviously eager to sell the farm in his hand. Involving the asset transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars. Suyi definitely doesn't have that much money in his hands right now. But fortunately, this kind of thing cannot be settled in a day or two. What we need to talk about now is just a preliminary intention to cooperate. Mr. Sun also notes that I'm not in this business and I don't know much about your industry. How about you make a price, Mr. Sun, and I will study it when I get back and give you a reply. So, Yi changed hands and kicked the ball back and then added, if the price is reasonable, we can sign a contract of intent tomorrow at the latest. I can make an initial deposit of no less than 10 million. He really didn't understand the farm thing, and there was no need to pretend that he did. After all, he is now a boss who has money in his pocket and wants to invest in something, and was introduced by another boss. It is normal to not understand technology and market conditions. As long as he has money, some professional organizations will help him evaluate the value of the farm. Sun Wang was not surprised by this answer. After thinking again and again, he tentatively said, my initial opinion is 160 million. What do you think, Mr. Su? Yi raised his eyebrows in surprise when he heard this. Although he is not an expert, he must have been familiar with the relevant situation before coming here. Yuanfeng Farm was founded 13 years ago, with more than 100 million invested at that time. Coupled with the costs of maintenance and other aspects in recent years, the money invested in it will only be more. Of course, the farm must also be profitable. And it is impossible to make ends meet. It's just that after more than 10 years of inflation, 100 million more than 10 years ago and 100 million now are not the same concept. At that time, RMB 100 million was invested in purchasing various equipment that cannot be purchased with RMB 100 million now. And these devices are basically in good condition and usable. Coupled with land value appreciation. Even if the property rights of the farmland last for a total of 30 years, only 17 years are left, and since this is agricultural land, its value is definitely different from that of commercial land. But in general, it is completely impossible to contract such a large piece of land for 17 years at the price 10 years ago. So no matter how you look at it, this is a very conscientious price. Suyi's money came easily, since the other party had already offered a price that he thought was very reasonable, even preferential. He didn't bother to bargain. Anyway, it's just the intention stage now. When it comes to signing the contract and paying the money, he will definitely find a professional organization to come for inspection and evaluation. It's okay to agree now. Seeing that he agreed without even asking for the price, Sun Wang was naturally overjoyed. It happened to be dinner time at this time, and he specially invited Suyi and Yuling, who came with him, to have a meal in the farmhouse supporting the farm. During the meal, Suyi proposed to purchase a batch of fruits and vegetables first. Sun Wang naturally had no reason to refuse. He immediately asked managers how to arrange people to pick them overnight and deliver them to the warehouse designated by Suyi early tomorrow morning. Of course, for this kind of purchase, the money must be paid first. A total of 8 tons of fruits and vegetables were purchased, all of which were seasonal products, and they were freshly picked from this kind of ecological farm. The price was of course more expensive than the things in ordinary vegetable markets and fruit stores, a total of just over 100,000. Sun Wang made the decision and directly gave him a 100,000, signed the contract, and paid on the spot. Seeing that he transferred money without blinking an eye, and the money was transferred from a private account, Sun Wang was even happier these days. Some big bosses who claim to be worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions may actually have more debt than their net worth. If you want to buy a car, you have to use the company's account. Without using the public account, it is not necessarily possible to take out the 100,000 yuan for buying groceries anytime and anywhere. Unless they are really rich. Many rich people will not put too much money into their personal accounts. There are some tax issues involved, and people with money in their pockets are very smart. Chapter 12. Suyu's childhood friend has already prepared frozen meat. 2 tons in total will be delivered to a frozen warehouse he rented in advance tomorrow. together with the 8 tons of fresh fruits and vegetables, the 10 tons of fruits, vegetables and meat promised to Welly can all be traded tomorrow. The problem of finishing the first transaction on the trading platform has been solved. He felt relieved. But tonight's matter is not over yet. He had contacted Liu before to trade another 20 kilograms of gold. Liu also agreed, but the place agreed by both parties. This time was not the business club in the city center, where they met last time, as Suyi thought, but a quite remote resort in the suburbs of Jiangcheng. In name, the amount involved was too large, and it was not safe in the city center. What was actually going on was unknown. If it were before, Suyi would never have gone. Of course, if he was really stupid enough to reveal that he had so much gold without any support, and the other party really had bad intentions, then it would not make much difference whether he went or not. He could not fight against such an organization in the gray industry. But it is different now. With Yuling's personal protection in the territory of Jiazhou, as long as he is not targeted by the authorities, basically no one can do anything to him. He had previously demonstrated to Yuling in detail the lethality of some modern weapons through video. After watching it, Yuling gave him a very conservative answer according to Suyi's request. With no firearms can hurt Suyi. Even facing a cannon attack with a killing radius of more than 50 meters, she is confident that she can take Suyi away safely. As for more powerful weapons, she has no idea without corresponding video materials, but this is enough. With her as a support, Suyi said that he has no fear of Liu and the organization behind him. Naturally, there is no saying that he dares not go. What's more, he promised Sun Wang that he would sign a letter of intent tomorrow, and he would have to pay 10 million yuan in intention money at that time. Where would he get so much money if he didn't go? At 10 o'clock in the evening, Suyi, who had just finished a dinner with Sun Wang, rushed to the Jiangsan Villa Resort, which is also located in the southern suburbs of Jiangcheng. Soon he found the place he had agreed to meet with Liu. Liu, as an old acquaintance of his, was already waiting for him at the door. After they met, Liu didn't say much, and didn't ask much about Yuling, who was following behind Suyi. There was no body search procedure like those in those young and dangerous movies involving underground transactions. After a simple greeting, he took Suyi and the others into an inconspicuous villa. However, when entering the door, Liu still whispered, "The person who is handling your transaction is a big shot. He happened to be free today. He came to do it after hearing about this matter. You will definitely get a lot of money. Just pay attention to your attitude." Although Suyi didn't know who this big shot was, he actually asked him to pay attention to his attitude when buying his gold. But he could see that he was kindly reminding him, so he didn't say much, just nodded to show that he knew. Then he carried the safe full of gold and walked into the villa with Yuling. Liu didn't come in, but waited at the door. After entering the door, another man in a suit, who was very tough and indifferent, led the way. It was obvious that he had good fighting ability, probably a bodyguard or something like that. Suyi turned around and whispered to Yuling in the language of another world, "How many people with similar fighting ability can you deal with at most?" Ling glanced at the bodyguard who led the way and then shook her head. Suyi thought that she didn't see the bodyguard take action, so she couldn't assess his strength, so she couldn't just speak casually. But he didn't expect to hear Yuling say the next moment, "They are just ordinary people. No matter how many come, they will not pose any threat to me. According to the strength classification of our world, my martial arts strength has reached the level of Eclipse Knight. Even in the army with strong individual strength in our world, if there is no one of the same level as me in the opponent's army, I can easily come and go freely in hundreds of thousands of troops. Unless I don't want to live, I must fight with hundreds of thousands of troops and die of exhaustion. Otherwise hundreds of thousands of troops can't do anything to me. Of course, I can't solve these armies with my martial arts strength alone, but I also practiced elven magic, and my strength reached the level of a great magician. I can release some less powerful forbidden spells, so if there is no one of the same level as me in the opponent's army, I can try to bury all of them with hundreds of thousands of troops." So, Yu was stunned for a moment. Before, he only knew that Yuling should be very strong. Even in their world with extraordinary power, She can be regarded as a strong person. But this is the first time that Yuling has described her combat power more intuitively. Hundreds of thousands of enemies, and these hundreds of thousands of people are based on the army of the alien world, and their individual combat power is much stronger than that of the people of Blue Star. If she is not bragging, then this combat power is simply supermodal. On Blue Star, in the cold weapon battlefield of Blue Star, wouldn't it be true that one person can be a million-man army? Of course, it is only a cold weapon battlefield. The army of the alien world is only stronger than the people of Blue Star in terms of individuals, and how its specific combat power compares with the modern army of Blue Star is still to be discussed. After all, the development path is different. And Blue Star has a real killer weapon like mushroom eggs. Last night, when Suyi was free, in order to understand which of the two worlds was stronger, he also showed Yuling all the data of that's a hydrogen bomb. Yuling called it outrageous after reading it. In her words, this thing is probably that even the martial arts gods and magic gods who have practiced martial arts and magic to the extreme in their world would fall asleep on the spot after being hit by one. And the forbidden spell she mentioned is actually a kind of large-scale killing magic. The coverage radius of the less powerful ones is estimated to be only a few hundred to 1,000 meters, and the powerful ones can have a killing radius of several kilometers or even 10 kilometers. In fact, it is not as good as the common million-ton nuclear bombs on Blue Star, and on Blue Star, as long as there is a need, nuclear bombs can be produced in an assembly line indefinitely. But the magicians who can release forbidden spells on their side are not produced on an assembly line, and there are only so many. So in comparison, Suyi came to a conclusion that sounds a bit absurd. That is, if the two worlds were to fight with real weapons, the powerful superhumans in their world would probably not be able to defeat the ordinary humans on Blue Star who have been fighting internal wars for thousands of years and have mastered the technology of mutual destruction. Of course, that is the overall combat power comparison between the two worlds in the current situation. Individual strength is obviously more important to Suyi. And Yuling is this individual with explosive combat power, which directly makes Suyi feel safe. Chapter 13. The voices of the two people talking were confused by Yuling using a special magic. Outsiders could only hear what they were muttering, but they couldn't hear the content at all. Naturally, it is impossible to discover that this is a completely new language. The bodyguard who led the way also appeared to be quite professional. As there was no rule of silence in the villa, he ignored the communication between the two and just led the way, playing the role of a toolman perfectly. It's said to be a villa, but actually it's a huge retro-style house inside. The bodyguard led the two of them across the covered bridge with carved beams and painted buildings, and then came to a very exquisite garden. Although the garden is not big, it is well equipped. There is no shortage of small bridges, flowing water, rockery, and rock walls, and exotic flowers and plants. There is also a pavilion in the middle. In the pavilion, a man wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts cuddles up with a very cute little girl and feeds the koi. From time to time, the little girl's silvery laughter could be heard in the garden. If he ignored that what he came here to do was neither black nor white, Suyu felt that the scene in front of him was quite healing. But at this moment, she suddenly felt that Yuling beside her suddenly took the initiative to hold his hand and squeezed it slightly. At the same time, Yuling's voice came to her ears. That little girl is sick and dying. So, Yi was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked back at Yuling. Their eyes met. Yuling blinked and said firmly, "Really? She has a month to live at most, so, Yi." He looked back not because he suspected that Yuling had lied to him when he said that the little girl was going to die. Rather, I felt that it was a bit inconsistent for such a beautiful elf, who was rumored to be very kind and gentle, to say it in such a calm tone. But thinking about it carefully, it seems that these are the stereotypes of elves that he got from various entertainment works of Blue Star. The author himself has never seen elves, so how does he know what the personalities of elves in other worlds are like? Looking back, Suyu saw that the man seemed to be accompanying the little girl and ignored him, so Suyu turned to ask, "How did you tell?" Elves are relatively sensitive to the breath of life. Creatures that are about to end their lives will emit a breath of death. Any elf can see it at a glance. Yuling said matter-of-factly, "We are close to nature and revere life. Although we are not vegetarians as you said, the animals and plants we eat are basically about to die. This is also one of the ways we find food. Food? Suyu's eyes twitched, and he subconsciously glanced at the little girl. We don't eat intelligent beings. Yuling sighed helplessly. After spending a day together, she finally discovered it. The person he swore to protect was good in all aspects, but his mind seemed a bit big, and he would always think of some inexplicable things. Oh, that's okay. Suyu said again, so this little girl is dead. Under normal circumstances, he should be dead, but if you or I want to save her, she can be saved. Yuling said seriously. You or me? Suyu asked doubtfully. You know magic, so I can understand if you can save her, but I don't know how. How can I save her? Water of life. Yuling seemed a little surprised. Princess Wee gave you a bottle of water of life in exchange, right? Didn't she tell you about the efficacy of water of life? In her case, a few drops can help her live 10 more years. One drop of the small cup you used to drink when we were eating should be able to make her recover, and she will be healthier than anyone else in her life. You'll get sick, and you'll have no problem living to be 150 years old, etc. Suyu was suddenly confused. If he remembered correctly, the water of life was used to exchange for the 10 tons of fruits, vegetables and meat, right? He spent a total of more than 100,000 on purchasing those things. Now tell me, I bought more than 500 milliliters of something worth more than 100,000 yuan, and it still has this effect. Let's not talk about curing diseases. Just one cup can make a person live to 150 years old. If he wants to sell it, this small bottle will make him the richest man in minutes. Those rich people who are afraid of death may not even blink an eye if they spend tens of billions a cup in order to live for a few more decades. If you are so awesome, you should have told me earlier. Why the hell would I be selling gold? This thing is much more valuable than gold. When the trading platform introduces a water of life, it only says that it can cure all diseases, prolong life, enhance physical fitness, and that long-term drinking can promote the evolution of the human body, but there are no specific effects. Moreover, it was so easy to get this thing that Suyi didn't pay much attention to it and only thought about finding an opportunity to implement the effect. When he got busy recently, he forgot about it. Naturally, I didn't expect to ask Yuling. After hearing Yuling's words, he immediately realized that this was the most valuable thing currently appearing in that other world. Although the two people's whispers were deliberately lowered, they were so close that they could still be heard in the pavilion. While having fun, the little girl noticed two strangers coming and said very sensibly, "Dad, a guest is coming. You go and do your work first. Ying needs to go to bed too." "Okay, Ying, go and wash up first. Dad will tell you a story later." The man gently rubbed the little girl's head. After the woman dressed as a servant took the girl away, the man turned back to look at Suyi and the 2. When he glanced at Yuling, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes that was difficult to conceal. But it was just a glance. He quickly focused on Suyi and said with interest, "Are you a doctor, Su?" Yi never expected that he would ask such a strange question when he first came up, and said in surprise, "Why do you ask that?" When you looked at Ying just now, there was obviously a look of pity and sympathy in your eyes. You must have seen that she was in poor health, right? Not only was he in poor health, he was about to die. Suyi complained in his heart, but his mind was moving very quickly, and he said without changing his expression, "My family has been practicing traditional Chinese medicine for generations. Although I didn't learn much from me, I still know a little bit about it. A family of traditional Chinese medicine that treats illnesses and saves lives. No wonder they have so much gold." The man seemed to mean something. But then he put aside the gold matter, and the calm and indifferent look on the little girl's face after she left showed a few other emotions. "What do you think of Ying's condition?" "Don't worry, we follow the rules and there is no such thing as hiding a disease or avoiding medical treatment." His tone seemed nonchalant, as if he was talking about a trivial matter, but Suyi could clearly feel that there seemed to be some hope in his eyes, so he said, "I can live for a month at most." After thinking about it, he added, "On the premise of maintaining the status quo and doing nothing." He only knew that the little girl was about to die, but he didn't know what kind of disease she had, or what kind of treatment she usually received. If you get cancer, and you have to undergo chemotherapy from time to time, God knows if you can survive more than a month. Snap. The man who was quite casual a second ago, and didn't seem to care much about it, suddenly stood up. The mobile phone placed in front of him fell to the ground, and fell directly into the fish pond without caring. He stared at Suyi. Are you really a capable inheritor of traditional Chinese medicine? Can cancer be cured? That look was like a drowning man grabbing the last thing he could hold on to. As for whether this thing was hemp rope or straw, he could no longer care. However, Suyi pointed to the suitcase in Yuling's hand and said, I'm here to do business. There's gold in this. It's 47 kilograms in total. Boss, why don't you inspect the goods first? Chapter 14. To be honest, the guy in front of him was very rude to Suyi. He had agreed with Leo Liu to arrive at this time, and he neither came early nor was late. But after he arrived, he saw this guy accompanying his daughter for more than 10 minutes. He and Yuling stood beside him humbly like servants in other people's homes. If Yuling hadn't said that the little girl was dying, which made Suyi barely understand his behavior of leaving the guests aside to accompany his daughter, he would have taken Yuling away long ago. After all, he came to do business, not to beg for help. And now the offensive and defensive situation is different. It's the other person's turn to beg him. Without saying too much, Suyi still wants an apology. The man glanced at the box in Yuling's hand, surprised that such a beautiful woman could carry dozens of kilograms of heavy objects for so long, and reacted quickly, realizing that his previous behavior was inappropriate. He quickly stood up and stretched out his hand and said, Mr. Su, right? I'm Shen Mingshu. I'm so sorry. I missed the appointment tonight. It's just that my daughter's body is really Anyway, it's all my fault. To show my sincerity, I will buy the gold at the current market price. There is no need to check it. Give me an account and I will transfer the money now. Suyi stretched out his hand and shook his hand, then smiled and said, that's not necessary. In business, the goods that should be checked still need to be checked. The goods need to be checked, but he bought them at the market price, and Suyi accepted it. After all, the price difference is hundreds of yuan per gram. Okay, then check it. Shen Mingshu was not hypocritical, and agreed to it. A moment later, someone came to the garden with various equipment to test the purity of the gold on the spot. Suyi told Leo Liu that he was going to sell 20 kilograms of gold. But after arriving at the scene and seeing the situation in front of him, he changed his mind and took out all the gold in the storage space. Anyway, it can't produce offspring if it's kept. Shen Mingshu in front of him is obviously a big shot. He probably won't refuse to accept it, just because he took a little more gold. With Yuling around, it's not a problem to put the gold into the suitcase without alerting others taking advantage of the gap in testing the gold. Shen Mingshu took the initiative to come forward and talk to Suyi. This person has a very high emotional intelligence. He quickly resolved the embarrassment of leaving the two of them aside just now, and his attitude of admitting his mistake was very sincere. This was originally a trivial matter, and the other party did have a reason, so Suyi didn't keep holding on to it. The two of them soon had a good chat. Then the topic turned back to the girl's condition as expected. Suyi finally knew what disease she had. Congenital leukemia. Although he was not a real doctor, he had heard of this disease to some extent. Suyi was a little curious just now. What disease did this little girl have that couldn't be cured even with money? This solved his doubts. Mr. Su, do you think this disease can be cured? Shen Mingshu, who felt that he was almost done, finally asked carefully what he really cared about. It's difficult. It's difficult. Suyi shook his head and sighed. But Shen Mingshu was not discouraged when he heard this, but his eyes lit up. It's difficult, not incurable. He didn't say anything pretentious, like I have a lot of money and power. If you have any difficulties, just tell me directly. But, he said very sincerely, Mr. Su, Yingying's mother and I have known each other since childhood, grew up together, and finally got married. But my lover fell ill when she gave birth to Yingying and died in less than a year. Yingying is not only a daughter and a descendant to me, but also the last spiritual sustenance of my lifelong love. So, no matter what the price, as long as I can do it, I will never refuse you. See, this is called high emotional intelligence. Suyi is also very satisfied with his attitude. It was a bit too vulgar to mention the money directly. After thinking about it, he euphemistically expressed that he had gone to Yuanfeng Farm today, lamenting that the current procedures were cumbersome and complicated, but he wanted the farm for its own use, and it would be better if it could be done quickly. After hearing this, Shen Mengshu took the matter without any hesitation, saying that he would do it, and it would be done for Suyi tomorrow. He didn't mention a word about money during the whole process. Obviously, he planned to pay the 160 million transfer fee required by the farm itself. Since the other party was so open, Suyi naturally couldn't be stingy. He immediately said that he could go and see the little girl named Chen Yingying now. This was exactly what Shen Mengshu wanted, and of course he would not obstruct it. To say that he really believed that Suyi could treat this incurable disease was definitely nonsense. He did this just because his daughter didn't have much time left, so he tried his best. Of course, no one could deceive him. A shrewd person like Shen Mengshu can tell whether a person is really capable or just bluffing just by communicating with him. And there are other reasons why he is willing to give Suyi such an opportunity and even pay a huge reward of hundreds of millions for it. That is, few people know about Shen Yingying's condition. An outsider like Suyi can see Shen Yingying's physical condition at a glance and even guess how much time she has left, which shows that he is not simple. The group soon came to the door of a room on the second floor of the villa. Before opening the door, Suyi said, "Mr. Shen, I didn't prepare any treatment before I came here today, but I have a set of massage techniques that can alleviate Miss Shen's condition to a certain extent. You can take her to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow to see the specific effect during the treatment. Except for me and my assistant, it is best for others to stay outside and not come in. I wonder if Mr. Shen can accept it." Shen Mengwen opened his mouth, hesitated for a moment, and nodded decisively. "Okay." As he said that, he knocked on the door. When the nurse who took care of Shen Yingying came out, Suyi took Yuling into the exquisite little room with a pink girlish style. Shen Mengwen outside looked at the slowly closing bedroom door with a gleam in his eyes and glanced at a middle-aged man in black behind him. The middle-aged man nodded, and soon there were many elite bodyguards inside and outside the villa. Shen Mengwen did half black and half white things, so naturally there were many enemies outside. But first of all, these enemies basically couldn't know that his daughter was seriously ill. Secondly, the people who can make enemies with him are not stupid. Without knowing how deep Shen Mengwen's feelings for his daughter are, no one would think that he would do anything for his daughter. Sending people to hold his daughter hostage is useless except for making him angry. This is why Shen Mengwen agreed to let Suyi and his daughter be alone. However, he has a bottom line in his heart, but people are the most unpredictable things in the world. In order to be on the safe side, he specially mobilized people to come. If Shen Yingying has any accident, he will definitely not let Suyi and his two leave. Although some words are not said, everyone knows it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. There are a lot of people outside, probably 50 or 60. Some of them have weapons on them, which should be the kind of pistols you showed me in the video. In the girlish little room, Yuling said calmly, "It's okay. This is my pet peeve after all. It's normal to be cautious. Don't worry about it." Suyi shook his head and then said, "Cast the spell." He specifically asked Yuling before if her healing technique could temporarily alleviate Yingying's condition. The answer is naturally yes. Even with Yuling's strength, even without using the water of life, using an advanced healing magic from the elves was enough to make this little girl recover. But the things promised are still just words. Naturally, Suyi would not cure his illness right now. That's why I said tonight can only alleviate the condition. but not cure it. When all the benefits are received, it will be time to really treat this little girl. Yuling naturally would not shirk Suyi's request. After receiving the clear instructions, he immediately chanted a spell softly. Soon, a green halo floated out from her palm and fell on Shen Yingying, who was already asleep. The little girl's brows, which had been frowning in her sleep due to physical discomfort, immediately relaxed the moment the healing magic fell on her, obviously much more comfortable. Is this good? After waiting for a long time, Suyi didn't see any other subsequent actions from Yuling, so he couldn't help but ask, okay. Yuling nodded affirmatively. If she could only live for a month at most before this, then even if we don't care about her now, she can live for at least half a year. Awesome. Suyi did not hesitate to praise him. No matter how many times I see it, seeing this extraordinary power in the hands of life is shocking enough. With a single thought, a dying person can be brought back to life. This kind of power only existed in people's imagination in the past. But now, through the trading platform, all of this is within reach of Suyi. In order not to make Shen Mingwen suspicious, Suyi and Yuling stayed in the little girl's room for almost half an hour before opening the door. As soon as the door opened, Shen Mingwen came over and said eagerly, "How's it going? Fortunately, I did not disgrace my life." Suyi smiled and said, "Although this cannot cure Miss Shen's condition, it can at least make her feel more comfortable. It is very painful for patients who are still undergoing treatment for terminal cancer without seeking to cure the disease. Just being able to do this is a great kindness to many patients and their relatives." Shen Mingwen thanked him repeatedly and invited Suyi and two people to spend the night here on the grounds that it was getting late. Suyi knew what he meant, so he naturally didn't refuse. This kind of wealthy family pays attention to a rigorous approach in handling affairs, but it is not like in some TV dramas or novels, where a man and a woman who are in an ambiguous period go to live in a strange place. At night, the host assumes that they are a couple and only arranges for one room. After the Shen family members asked Suyi tactfully, they took them to two adjacent guest rooms. Yuling played another all-night game. But this time I played Xiaoxiol. Suyi slept as usual and didn't get up until noon the next day. After washing up, he went out and saw Shen Mingwen and Shen Yingying waiting at the door. As soon as he saw him coming out, Shen Mingwen quickly stood up and said to the little girl, "Quick, thank you uncle, thank you, uncle." The childish voice sounded along with the ignorant children's voice. Suyi, who had just woken up and was still a little confused, came back to his senses. He tapped Shen Yingying's little face carefully. Compared to the visibly haggard appearance last night, he does look a lot more rosy today. Yuling's healing technique still has something to offer. Shen Mingwen brought his daughter here to wait for Suyi, seemingly just to thank him. After thanking him, he asked someone to take his daughter away and then said very sincerely, "A professional medical team has examined Yingying in the morning." The test results shocked the attending physician. Although the cancer cells in Yingying's body have not been eradicated, they have been reduced a lot, and normal cells have not been affected, which is completely different from the effect of chemotherapy. The doctor said that he has never seen this situation. "Mr. Su, to be honest, I really didn't expect you to be able to achieve this level. In my opinion, Yingying can be relieved of some pain, which is enough to be worthy of the reward I paid you. Even if it cannot be completely cured, I won't trouble you again. So, I want you to tell the truth, whether Yingying's disease can be completely cured. To put it bluntly, he asked Suyi to give it a try. Because of his mentality of treating a dead horse as a living horse doctor until now, he still couldn't believe that the young man in front of him could really do a better job in treating cancer than doctors with the blessing of modern technology. In fact, the attending doctor said something in the morning that he did not tell Suyi. That is, with Shen Yingying's current condition, it is not even considered to be in the late stage of cancer. At most, it can only be considered to be in the early to mid stage. If a suitable bone marrow transplant can be found, there is great hope for a cure. For Shen Mingwen, as long as there is hope for a cure, finding a suitable bone marrow is not a big problem. However, this treatment method will definitely be accompanied by many sequelae in the later stage. After seeing Suyi's magical methods, he naturally wanted better ones. Without Any hesitation? Su Yi nodded and gave Shen Mingwen the answer he wanted. Shen Mingwen didn't ask any more questions. After heaving a sigh of relief, he handed an information bag placed aside to Su Yi. Mr. Su, the matter has been taken care of for you. Yuanfeng Farm and 6 other large farms around Yuanfeng Farm total 17,000 acres of land. I have integrated them all into a super large farm. Of course externally, this is generally called an agricultural demonstration area, but there is essentially no difference. This farm is now in your name. It has not been named yet. I have found a temporary manager for you and cleared the procedural issues for you. If you have any favorite company name, just give the manager a call directly. That's fine. The phone number is also in the file. In addition, I also registered a wholly owned agricultural product operating company in your name. You can also ask the manager to change your name when the time comes. The 47 kilograms of gold you gave me last night totaled 25.85 million yuan at the current market price. I decided to give you a total of 30 million yuan. All of it has been credited to this company's account. You can access it at any time. The tax has already been paid. As he spoke, he took a deep breath. If Mr. Su can really cure Yingying's disease, I will pay 500 million to the company account to express my gratitude. In addition, I personally, and the entire Shen family, owe you a big favor. Of course, even if it can't be cured, what I said before will stand, and I will never cause trouble to you. Chapter 16. Su Yi was still a little confused when he walked out of the Shen family villa with the file bag. To be honest, when he came here last night, he really only planned to sell the gold for money and then use the money to pay the intention deposit of Yuanfeng Farm and purchase grain from the food processing factory to sell to the other world to get more gold for more money. He never expected that in just one night he had almost achieved financial freedom and no longer had to worry about money. He even had a farm that he had tried so hard to acquire in order to legally obtain bulk grain commodities, and it was not just a large farm like Yuanfeng Farm, but a behemoth that was several times larger than Yuanfeng Farm. Sure enough, plans can't keep up with changes when you have some means of production that others don't have. The speed of making wealth is far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Su Yi was just an ordinary person before, and he never thought that something that can cure diseases can make so much money. He was still thinking about how to tinker with that little bit of gold. Of course, the most important thing is to see who is being cured. Only a rich girl like Shen Yingying, who has a father who is not short of money, can afford such a price point. If it were an ordinary person, if cancer treatment really costs so much money, he would probably have to choose to end his life. Su Yi had no other choice but to sigh that people with the same fate have different fates. There are many people with cancer in the world, and the family of each cancer patient is a history of blood and tears. The water of life from another world is not infinite, and the magic power of Yuling, an elf who can perform healing, is also limited. He can't save everyone. Among the limited people who can be saved, he will naturally save whoever offers the highest price. He is a vulgar person, greedy for money and lustful. There is no great soul that is free from vulgar interests, and the wealth and power in his hands are far from the point of benefiting the world. Just make money. Well, now it's time to consider how to spend the money. Looking at the 30 million lying in the account, Su Yi felt that he needed to spend it well. It doesn't cost much to operate a farm. After Shen Mingwen integrated it for him, there was already more than 60 million yuan in the farm account, and there were also a large number of mature agricultural products that could be sold at any time. He could use the 30 million yuan directly now, without having to consider leaving it for the farm to operate. Speaking of which, we are now a person with a net worth of hundreds of millions. It is not appropriate to live in a rental house. Let's buy a house first. Su Yi made a decision quickly and drove straight to a famous villa area in the southern suburbs of Jiangcheng. Liu Sheng has been in a bad mood recently. Since returning to China, he always feels that his luck has never been good. He finally found a good job in the factory with the help of his brother-in-law's relationship, but he didn't expect to stir up trouble as soon as he took office, causing the factory to lose hundreds of thousands if there were no one under his command. Who could take the blame? I'm afraid that his brother-in-law Lee Win-Yuan would have to let him leave the factory point. But the problem is that there are only 2 or 3 people in the purchasing department, and Suyi basically did everything before point, but recently, Suyi was busy running around to clean up his mess, and he had no time to deal with the factory work point, so the purchasing work fell on him point. Damn. He studied for a master's degree abroad. How could he understand this kind of serious frontline work point these days? He was exhausted point. Which company's products are good but too expensive, and which company's products are cheap and affordable? He has no idea at all point. He is even more clueless about what money can be accepted and what cannot be accepted point. He purchases goods from the supplier, who gives him the most gifts less than a week after working. Complaints from the frontline production department floated into the boss's office like snowflakes, and he was scolded by his boss and brother-in-law Lee Win-Yuan for this. This is just at work point. Life is also a mess. His fiancée, who had been dating for 7 or 8 years and was about to get married, insisted that he sell the wedding house in the city that his parents bought for him and buy a new house in the suburbs. He thought this woman was probably crazy point, but he just couldn't get away from it point. Just now, he received a call from his fiancée asking him to go and see a house point. Wow. When he saw the address, it turned out to be the famous Jiangwan Villa district in Jiangcheng point. The houses in this place start at tens of millions at the very least, and he definitely can't afford it point. He felt aggrieved when he thought that he would have to beg his fiancée to not be angry and promise her that he would buy it in a few years. But people asked him to go and see the house just to see it, and it would be inappropriate for him not to go point, otherwise his fiancée might put on the hat of not making progress again, and he couldn't afford to offend her. Oh, it's so difficult. While sighing, Liu Sheng drove to pick someone up point. Soon he picked up his fiancée, who had just had her hair done at a barber shop point. Looking at his fiancée's face, which was more than 8 points with a little makeup and more beautiful than ordinary stars and models, the resentment in his heart dissipated at once point. His wife is so beautiful. What's wrong with making some requests? He should be the one working hard. Thinking of this, he immediately smiled and said to his fiancée mysteriously, "Ling Ling, guess what good thing happened to me today?" The woman in the passenger seat's eyes lit up and asked tentatively, "Another supplier gave you a big gift?" Liu Sheng's face flashed with embarrassment, and he shook his head and said, "Guess again. Could it be that your company paid the salary?" Liu Sheng barely managed his expression, then looked at his fiancée and said affectionately, "Neither. I saw you again, Ling Ling. Every time I see you, it is the best thing in my life." The woman's mouth twitched, and she looked out the window with disgust. "Boring. Let's go and see the house. I have already contacted them." Liu Sheng didn't care about his fiancée's disgusted expression. He knew very well that his wife, who had not yet married, was a sharp tongue, but a soft heart point. She said boring, but she must be very happy in her heart at this moment. After saying the earthy love words, Liu Sheng was in a good mood and drove straight to Jiangwan Villa district point. It was not rush hour at this time, so there was no traffic jam on the road point. The two arrived outside the villa area in less than half an hour, and the salesperson who had been contacted long ago was waiting at the door of the sales office point. When Liu Sheng parked his car, there was even a doorman who came to open the door for him point. This kind of treatment made Liu Sheng sigh in his heart. It was indeed a high-end villa area, and the service was thoughtful point. If he had money, he would definitely buy a villa in this villa area, just for this service point. But the next moment, when he saw the person walking out of the broken car in the next parking space, he couldn't help but be stunned. So, Yi. Chapter 17. As soon as he got off the car, Suyi heard someone calling him point. Looking around, he saw the unfortunate kid Liu Sheng point. I didn't expect to meet this guy, even when I came to see a house. Suyi was speechless and didn't want to talk to him at all point. However, Liu Sheng's fiancée was right next to him, and he was at his strongest just now point. When he called Suyi just now, he just wanted to let his fiancée know his social status, but he didn't expect Suyi to ignore him directly point. This made him a little anxious for a moment, and he walked over in a few steps and said, "Wait, Suyi, aren't you supposed to be talking to your customers about purchasing that batch of grain now? Why are you here?" As he spoke, He did not forget to say to his fiancée behind him, "This is the subordinate in our department I told you about." Su Yi sighed and glanced at the sand sculpture helplessly. "Liu, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If I remember correctly, it's still working time, right? You can show up here. Why can't I?" Liu. Hearing this title from Su Yi again, and in front of his fiancée, Liu Sheng's face turned dark. On weekdays, he often brags to his fiancée about his status in the factory, and his subordinates will respectfully call him Director Liu. When they see him, what's the difference between Su Yi's little Liu and pulling off his underwear in public? Liu. Liu. Can you call me Liu? Liu Sheng said, squeezing his neck. "I won't argue with you. If you were rude before, this time you are so innocent. Do you still want to do it? Would I still be here if I wanted to do this?" Su Yi glanced at him in surprise. "Idiot." With that said, he turned around and walked towards the sales department. On the side, Yuling's eyes lingered between Liu Sheng and Liu Sheng for a while. Seeing that Su Yi was about to leave, she quickly followed. But this time, he learned a trick from Liu Sheng's fiancée and took the initiative to reach out and hold Su Yi's arm. But she never thought that she was much richer than Liu Sheng's fiancée, whose face was covered, and he couldn't tell the difference between men and women. Su Yi was caught off guard by the sudden soft touch on his arm. But in public, he couldn't be pushed away by other girls. So he could only lean into her ear and whisper, "Well, actually you don't need to hold me so tightly, you." Ling blinked and didn't understand why she couldn't hold her so tightly, but she still relaxed a little as she was told. The almost touching feeling dissipated a little, and Su Yi also breathed a sigh of relief. He took a few deep breaths to cool down his blood that was almost boiling. Only then did Liu Sheng, who was behind him, notice that the female companion next to Su Yi was so beautiful. Not only was she beautiful, but she also had an amazing figure. The fiancée next to him, who had always been as beautiful as a fairy in his eyes, suddenly didn't seem so attractive at this moment. Of course, there are many beautiful women in the world. It's not like Liu Sheng would change his mind when he sees a woman who is prettier than his fiancée. The main thing is that this beautiful woman is holding Su Yi's arm now. How could this stinky loser find such a beautiful girlfriend? Liu Sheng's actions were all seen by his fiancée beside him, especially the scene where he first looked at Yuling and then turned to look at his fiancée, which clearly exposed the contrast between the two in his heart. Although many women have a kind of self-confidence in their appearance and feel that they must be more beautiful than others, but that's no matter who the score is compared to. In front of Yuling, even if his fiancée was usually confident about her appearance, she would inevitably become shabby now. And I happened to meet Liu Sheng, my boyfriend, who looked at the two of them with contrasting eyes. Suddenly he became angry. He threw Liu Sheng away and walked to the sales department without saying a word. Only then did Liu Sheng react. He quickly ran after him and apologized humbly. Finally he agreed to spend 20,000 to give her a new style bag, and the matter was over, and his fiancée finally agreed to accompany him to look at the house. So the woman's original request to see the house naturally turned into Liu Sheng begging his fiancée to see the house. He had a vague feeling that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. I was even a little glad that my fiancée was generous. Although she spent some money, she was able to get her settled quickly. "Handsome beauty, do you want to come and see the house?" As soon as he entered the sales department, a beautiful saleswoman took the initiative to greet him. Su Yi nodded and said, "Is there an existing house? It's the kind that's been renovated and ready to move in." "Hello, yes. You too. Please sit over here." The salesperson's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly led the two of them to the rest area and asked as they walked, "Do you want to buy or rent? The economy is not good, and houses are naturally not so easy to sell. Naturally, they also have rental services here. Buy a house. So, what are your requirements for the house? For example, in terms of environment and decoration?" The salesperson asked more carefully, and Su Yi answered them one by one. At the end of the question, the salesperson finally asked the most important question: "What's your approximate budget range?" "Within 30 million. Suyi thought about the savings in his pocket and replied, if there is a very suitable house, it is not impossible to go higher. The salesman's eyes suddenly lit up. At this price, there are many houses to choose from. We have several that are very suitable for your needs. As he said this, he took out a large booklet, which contained some villa floor plans, pictures of the location, and surrounding environment. After another round of selection, 2 houses were finally selected. The salesperson immediately said that the keys were in the sales office and they could go and see them now. Of course, Suyi would not refuse. However, as luck would have it, just as he was sitting in the sales office's sightseeing car and preparing to leave, Liu Sheng and his wife appeared again. They were led by another salesperson to see the house, and they happened to see the same house as Suyi. However, these salespeople have been in this business for a long time, and they are obviously shrewd people. Who is here to buy a house and who is just here to take a look can be guessed almost accurately just from their conversation and expression. Seeing this, the female salesperson who brought Suyi and the others was afraid that Suyi might worry that someone else might have snatched the house, so she found an opportunity to whisper, "Don't worry, boss. My colleague said that these 2 people would just go to take a look and not buy it, and now we are mainly looking at the exterior environment of the villa. Generally, the interior of this kind of finely decorated villa is not allowed to be seen without signing a letter of intent. If you want to see the decoration style, you can mainly look at the model room. You don't have to worry about the house being seen by all kinds of people before you buy it. We will pay special attention to this." So, Yi certainly didn't need her to remind him. The villas here cost tens of millions. Not to mention Liu Sheng, even if his brother-in-law Li Winian, the owner of the grain processing plant, came, he would have to think twice if he wanted to buy it. Having a net worth of tens of millions is not the same as taking out tens of millions in cash. But the rules of viewing houses in this villa area made him feel very comfortable. After all, he really wanted to buy it, so he naturally didn't want others to see his house casually before he bought it. It can only be said that their service is indeed worthy of the price. Chapter 18. The sightseeing bus has several rows. Suyi and his sales team sat in the first row. Liu Sheng and his wife sat in the last row. Although they disliked each other, they didn't curse or fight as soon as they met. At this time, Liu Sheng was also in the back row asking Suyi and the other man what they were doing here, and the salesman who brought him here was honest and answered honestly, "My colleague said they were here to buy a house. And they like 2 houses. One is the lakeside villa we are going to see later, which has a good view, and the other is closer to the entrance of the villa area, which is more convenient. I guess we will sign the contract after we finish looking at it." "Sign a contract?" Liu Sheng sneered at this. "Brother, you are too honest. You can tell at a glance that this guy is just here to see the world, let alone buying a house here. He probably can't even pay the deposit with all the money he has. Look at his Teobeo clothes. Does he look like someone who can afford a villa?" Sales have been in this business for many years, and they can still tell who is really here to buy a house and who is just here to take a look. If he really relies on clothes to judge whether a customer can afford a house, he would have been unemployed long ago. Take the 2 couples in front of him as an example. Although the handsome man and beautiful woman in front wore simple clothes, the girl was so beautiful and her temperament was so outstanding that you could tell at a glance that she couldn't be an ordinary person. A man with such a beautiful woman by his side couldn't be ordinary. The team behind was different. Although they were all wearing big brands, they were actually some affordable styles, and the prices were not that expensive. At most, the LV bag in the woman's hand was more valuable. This kind of people looked more like people who had no money, but insisted on hanging some luxury goods on themselves. For a discerning salesperson, there was no suspense about which of the 2 groups was more likely to buy a house after seeing it. But after all, they were customers. Although they were not here to buy a house, out of professionalism, the salesperson couldn't directly refute them, and could only smile and say nothing. But he didn't say anything, and Liu Sheng, who was anxious to regain some face in front of his fiancée, refused to agree. He quickly added, "Don't disbelieve me, I know this guy. He's just a small manager in charge of purchasing in my brother-in-law's factory. If He really has the money to buy a house here. How could he go to work in the factory? The salesperson couldn't help but think that Liu Sheng and the others weren't here to buy a house anyway, and he probably wouldn't be punished even if he complained. So he said immediately, sometimes work doesn't mean anything. We received a customer before. He usually sells fish in the vegetable market not far from the community. Many people nearby know him. He didn't even have time to change his clothes when he came to see our house. He was wearing a blue worksuit that was dirty and smelled of fish. At that time, there was a person here who looked down on others. He thought that the person was dressed ordinary and usually sold fish, so he thought that this customer was here. I just wanted to join in the fun, and I was busy that day, so I was very perfunctory when I received him. I never expected that the boss of the fish seller had an office building of more than 20 floors in his home. He usually sold fish just because he liked fishing, but didn't like eating fish. At first, he sold it in bits and pieces. Later, as there were more repeat customers, he simply sold fish every morning. The boss directly spent more than 60 million yuan to buy building number 2 in our villa area and complained about the salesperson who received him. The final result was naturally that the salesperson was fired, and the boss also happily took building number 2 and prepared to use it as a wedding house for his son in the future. Thinking that the other person was ordinary in dress and ordinary in work, he looked down on him. I don't know why, Liu Sheng always felt that the salesperson's story was made up on the spur of the moment, and the purpose was to scold him for looking down on others, but he couldn't get angry directly, and the other person didn't scold him by name point, and he was also afraid that, if he got serious, he would ruin the house viewing, and make his fiancé unhappy point. So, even though he was unhappy, he could only mutter wait and see. He will definitely not buy. To end the topic point, the salesperson next to him disagreed. Point customers like Su Yi, whether they buy a house or not, are much more comfortable to receive than Liu Sheng. Point at least, when the salesperson introduced the house to Su Yi listened carefully. Point, when he introduced it to Liu Sheng looked around and didn't listen to a word at all, which was very disrespectful. We're here. The sightseeing bus drove in the huge villa area for a while and arrived in front of a 4-story single-family villa. Point, it must be said that the scenery around the villa is very good, and the distance between each building is more than 100 meters. Across the road from the door is a lake connected to the river. The water quality is clear and bottom clear, which is obviously specially treated. Point, and considering the flood season in Jiangcheng, although the villa area is adjacent to the lake, the terrain is very high, and even if the water rises, it is impossible to flood the house. Point, it can be said to be comprehensive. Point, there is a forest behind the house, and there are neighbors only on the left and right sides. The salesperson introduced enthusiastically, Mr. Su, our building is mainly for quietness and seclusion. In such a big city, we are looking for a place that can make people feel at ease. We try to design all gardens in accordance with the natural ecology, and we also do a lot of biological control work so that you can experience the quiet life in the forest without being affected by all kinds of annoying snakes, insects, rats and ants in the deep mountains and old forests. Close to nature to a certain extent is our slogan. After all, no one can stand living in the pure natural wilderness these days, don't you think? Look at the lake in front. On the side close to the villa, we have specially made a fence to isolate it, which can prevent the garbage from floating in. At the same time, we have also raised a large number of native fish from the river in the water, and there are special people to feed them. If you have a hobby of fishing, after becoming our owner, you can fish as you like. All kinds of fish are raised by us and can be fished. We also asked professionals to find more than 100 excellent fishing spots on the lakeside and build special fishing platforms. This is a benefit exclusive to single-family villa owners. You can choose any fishing platform as your private fishing platform at any time. This is included with the purchase of the villa, and you don't need to pay extra money. In addition to the fish in the lake, you can also pick some things produced in the forest behind you at will. The fruit trees in the forest are regularly taken care of. In addition, there are mushrooms in the forest in this season. Many owners like this. When they have nothing to do, they will take time to go to the forest to pick mushrooms and eat them. After all, this is the real pure and pollution free. Chapter 19. The salesperson spent nearly an hour talking about the environment and supporting facilities around the villa point. To be honest, before this, Sui bought a villa just because he had money and wanted to find a larger living environment. He didn't want to live in a rental house of dozens of square meters or buy a commercial house of 100 square meters to compete with his neighbors for the elevator. But now that he has seen the environment and various supporting facilities in this villa area, he really thinks that this villa area with an average starting price of 10 million yuan has almost no other disadvantages except being expensive. There are lakes where you can fish at will, and there are a lot of fish in them. There are also forests that can produce various mountain products, and there is no need to worry about snakes, insects, rats and ants. Each villa also comes with a garden of more than 1 acre, and there is no restriction on what the owner can do with the garden, whether you raise some flowers and plants, or grow some vegetables. Even if you get a paddy field to grow rice, no one will care about you. As long as you don't affect your neighbors, you can do whatever you want. And the distance between each building is more than 100 meters. It is also difficult to affect the neighbors. In addition, the community also has public camping areas, barbecue areas, stadiums, athletic fields and other facilities in places with good scenery, which can be used by owners for free. Of course, although it is free, the maintenance of these supporting facilities must cost money. It's just that all the money is included in the property fee. For the villa that Sui wants to buy, the available building area is more than 700 square meters, and the annual property fee to be paid is more than 150,000. It is higher than the annual income of ordinary people. But this amount of money is obviously nothing for people who can spend tens of millions to buy such a villa. The most important thing is to buy a service that makes you feel comfortable. After seeing the first building, Sui and the others followed to see another building. In comparison, he still likes the building facing the lake more, and Yuling also likes that building more. That building is farther away from the hustle and bustle of the community entrance and closer to nature. Of course, there are also disadvantages. After all, it is by the lake. No matter how it is handled, there are inevitably many mosquitoes in summer. However, this is a problem for others, but it is a trivial matter for Sui. Yuling is right next to him. The elves are close to nature and have many ways to deal with these annoying little creatures. Since Sui complained about being bitten by a mosquito in the hotel the night before, he hasn't seen what a mosquito looks like in the past 2 days. He is not a procrastinator. After making a decision, he followed the salesperson back to the sales office. He handled the procedures and transferred the money in one go. He had just received 30 million yuan, but before he could even feel the warmth in his pocket, he had already spent 28 million yuan. In total, this building costs nearly 40,000 yuan per square meter. It is not actually the top one in the current housing prices in Jiangsheng, but this thing also depends on the location. The environment here is really good, and the location, saying it is a rural urban junction, is praising its location. This kind of location sells for this kind of price, and the bulk of it is of course spent on the actual living experience. But for Sui, this kind of place is really enough. He doesn't need to rush to work during rush hour now. On the contrary, his farm is also in the suburbs, not far from here. If he really wants to buy an apartment in a good location in the city center, this amount of money can only buy a small house of less than 200 square meters. Not only is the living experience poor, but it will also increase the difficulty of his daily commute. In short, he is very satisfied with everything here. Yuling does not understand the desire of Jia's how people for a house of their own, so naturally she does not understand why Sui is so happy. But on the way back, she still suggested, I see that there are a lot of vacant land around the house you bought. If possible, you might as well trade some magical plants from that world with Princess Wei Wei. I can help you turn the yard into a garden full of magical plants. Not only is it beautiful, it also has certain defensive functions, and many magical plants have special effects, and they have some special effects after eating. Magic plants? Sui was stunned for a moment before Yuling reminded him. He had never thought about this, but thinking carefully, Yuling, as an elf, must be very familiar with the various plants in their world. With her help, it might be possible to plant some special products from another world. But there is still a problem here. The environment of the two worlds should be different, right? Can the magic plants in your world survive in our world? Why not? Yuling asked in confusion. I even feel that the magic energy here is more abundant than in our world. If we transplant the magic plants from our world here, they can not only survive, but I think they can even grow better than in our world. We also have magic energy here, of course, otherwise how can I use magic here? Listening to Yuling's matter-of-fact tone, Suyi was really shocked. So, doesn't it mean that magic can also be practiced in Blue Star? But after thinking about it carefully, he shook his head and said, this is impossible. If so, why has there never been a magician or warrior like you in our world? You, Ling said with a slightly strange tone. If I remember correctly, you said before that the oldest recorded civilization heritage here is your Jiazhou, which is only that, right? About 5,000 years. Then it counts as 10,000 years. Do you know how long it has been there? How long? The Qiang Empire, where Princess Weiwei is located, has existed for more than 120,000 years. Our elf kingdom has existed for even longer, because the elves are immortal and have a longer lifespan, at least 1,000 years. We have a history of more than 300,000 years of written records. Yuling said seriously, you are too young and have not really learned how to use the special energy in the universe. Of course, even the world we are in may not have gone far on this road to transcendence. With only a few 100,000 years, I'm afraid we have just started on this road. This is not my personal imagination, but I know that there is a world like your Blue Star outside our world. As for the reasonable guesses drawn after the existence of such trading platforms, as far as I know, in our place, some extremely powerful gods of law or gods of war can live for more than 10,000 years, and our elves even have existences that have lived for more than 100,000 years. On the road to transcendence, time is the least valuable thing, and your Blue Star has a history of more than 10,000 years of civilization, which is too young. That's not right. Suyi frowned and said, although human civilization is young, Blue Star has existed for a long time, and life appeared billions of years ago. If there is magic power in our world, then these creatures that have existed for so long should have some special features, right? Chapter 20. Yuling frowned when she heard this, as if she was thinking about how to explain to Suyi. After a moment, she said, this power is very special. If we rely solely on the unconscious adaptation, absorption, and evolution of animals and plants to utilize it, it will be an extremely slow process. In fact, most of the magic plants I told you were artificially cultivated by our people. After discovering the power of magic, the same is true for those dangerous monsters. They were all cultivated by intelligent creatures who first discovered the power of magic. However, these intelligent creatures may not be humans. Elves, dragons, and dwarves have basically done similar things. Animals and plants that are cultivated and exposed to magical power will also develop wisdom after they become powerful to a certain extent, and a new intelligent race is born. They may use the power of magic to cultivate other races for certain purposes. This is the reason why our world can have so many intelligent races. Many races are not born intelligent. As for which race among these races is naturally produced, it is impossible to trace the origin of the one who first discovered magical power and then created other races. Well, it can be regarded as an unsolved mystery on our side, but after coming to Blue Star, I can probably guess the answer. Humans are the first intelligent race to be born in nature. Why do your words sound so permeable? In this way, there are so many races in their world, and it seems that they are all the results of the biological experiments of the ancestors there. Even Suyi could imagine what the ancestors of their world who created other races were thinking. For example, after mastering powerful magical power, I feel that my human body is too weak and my lifetime is too short. Therefore, immortal species such as elves were created in an attempt to obtain a longer lifespan. This kind of thing is really something humans can do. As for cultivating so many chaotic races, whether these intelligent races will compete with future generations of humans for survival resources after they develop, is obviously not something these people consider. Just trust in the wisdom of future generations and that's it. The logic is totally fine. I think we should continue talking about magic plants. So, Yi felt that this topic was still a bit too ambitious, and it wasn't what he should be concerned about right now. Decisively chose to change the topic. Do you think, if some special magic plants are introduced from your world here, can they be planted on a large scale? Or can we cultivate some of our local specialty magic plants here, and then resell them back to you? That world, you. Ling thought carefully and said, the magic power of Blue Star is more abundant than that of our world. It should be feasible to plant magic plants in large areas. It just requires some special magic circles that gather magic power. Princess Welly doesn't have this thing. You have to let her. It will probably be troublesome to purchase them. The only ones where we can plant magic plants on a large scale are our elves and the Magic Kingdom. We elves can do this because of the existence of the Fountain of Life and Moon Lake. The Magic Kingdom relies on the cultivation of magic circles, and their method is more suitable for your world. Why? Suyi glanced at her and said, didn't I say that the core of the Fountain of Life is in you? This thing is also a man-made creation, right? Let's find a way to build a Fountain of Life on Blue Star. 2. It's difficult. Yuling shook her head. The Fountain of Life is said to have been created in an extremely ancient period. Dozens of magicians at the level of magic gods spent countless rare treasures to create it. Even in our world, it is impossible to create another one now, let alone the current one here. There is almost no theoretical basis for magic, and I'm the only one who knows magic. In contrast, as long as you can afford to pay enough for a large magic circle, the Magic Kingdom can still sell it, and if you are just growing magic plants on the scale of your farm, in fact, we may not necessarily need a large magic circle in the early stage. It is enough for you to ask Wee Wee to help you purchase a small magic circle. There is no purchase threshold for this. As long as she is willing, she can easily. It's easy to buy. Okay. Suyi sighed with some regret. But after asking Yuling about the effects of these magical plants, her fighting spirit suddenly rekindled. There are ones that can be used as bodyguards at home, which are better than dogs. There are foods specially grown for eating. If you eat too much, ordinary people can gain the level of strength of their new warriors, and it is easy to kill a cow with one punch. There are also some magical plants that are specially designed to beautify people, prolong life, and even aphrodisiac. These are all business opportunities. Suyi's current farm has nearly 20,000 acres of land. Even if he only grows these special magic plants on the farm, he doesn't dare to think about the price that the things he grows can fetch. This is the only good thing in the entire Blue Star. In addition to plants, there are also magical beasts specially bred for food in the magical world. That thing is even more awesome. Its main feature is that it not only strengthens your body, but also tastes better than any ordinary animal. This is all a business opportunity. With an elf like Yuling helping him, he didn't have to worry about being an amateur buying all the good stuff and feeding it to death. If that doesn't work, he can buy a few more elves from Wee Wee to help take care of the farm. The primary life trading license card in the trading platform. Small is not expensive. This is a business that is sure to make money. Plant only in the yard of the villa. It's too small. The pattern is too small. He wants to plant all over his farm. If Yuling hadn't seen the yard of the villa and suddenly mentioned it out of the nature of the elves, Suyi really wouldn't have thought of this way to make money. The farm that he originally purchased as a white glove to purchase various materials now seems to be worth buying. There are too many benefits. You are really my lucky goddess. Yi became more and more excited as he thought about it. If he wasn't driving at this moment, he would have wanted to hug Yuling and kiss her hard. Originally, after obtaining the trading platform, he hadn't figured out how to use the platform to make a lot of money. Before, he only knew how to foolishly get the gold. But this can't be blamed on him. The magic world is a completely unfamiliar world to him. He doesn't have the ability to foresee and know, so naturally he doesn't know what is more valuable to him from other people's place, and he is still in the stage of exploration. The arrival of Yuling obviously allows him to skip this stage. With her knowledge, Suyi can quickly use the transactions with Wee Wee on the trading platform to grow and develop in Blue Star at the same time. More frequent and valuable transactions can also allow him to obtain membership points of the trading platform faster. When he accumulates enough points, he can buy matching cards To find more valuable worlds for cooperation. It is good to integrate into the trading platform system quickly and develop healthily. Chapter 21. Reward. After hearing that Suyi wanted to reward her, Yuling thought seriously for a while and said, if you can quickly give me the world language card in the trading platform, that would be the best reward. She was very curious about everything in this world. Especially the magical internet. But due to the language barrier, she could not learn more about Blue Star through the internet. Even playing games was not easy many times, and she had to ask Suyi for everything. The language card produced by the trading platform was related to whether she could play games online every day and be a home girl in the future. It was really important. World language card. Suyi was stunned for a moment, and then came back to his senses. He said, why he always felt that he had forgotten something today. Yesterday, he made an appointment with Sun Wang, the former boss of Yuanfeng Farm, that the farm would deliver a batch of about 8 tons of fruits and vegetables today. In addition, the 2 tons of frozen meat that he asked his childhood friend Huang Lin to help him with should also be delivered to the freezer he rented in advance today. Suddenly, he got rich in the Shen family, and for a moment, he really forgot about these trivial matters with a total value of only 100,000 yuan. Thinking of this, he quickly called the warehouse to inquire. As expected, although the Shen family had made Sun Wang transfer the farm by some means, Sun Wang was an honest man and delivered all the 8 tons of fruits and vegetables to the place he designated according to the agreement yesterday. It is estimated that the Shen family also mentioned Suyi's matter during the transaction. So Sun Wang didn't even call from beginning to end, as if he was afraid of disturbing Suyi's business, and just took care of everything for him. Even at the warehouse, Suyi only rented it temporarily for one day and told the warehouse management that he planned to deliver the goods this morning and he would go to the warehouse in the afternoon to take them away. Because the lease period was too short and he didn't drag the things away at the agreed time, the warehouse management was not very reassured and called him to ask about the situation. As a result, Suyi was looking at houses at that time and his mobile phone was left in the car. So he didn't answer it at all. Now after asking, I found out that after the warehouse management couldn't get through to him, they called Sun Wang. After Sun Wang knew the situation, he took the initiative to pay for him to rent a few more days and told the management that Suyi had important things to do and asked them not to keep calling Suyi. If Suyi didn't take the goods and cause them to rot in the warehouse, then he would notify him and he would deal with it. He handled the matter so openly, and Suyi naturally had to express his gratitude. Now that he knew about it, he immediately took the initiative to call Sun Wang to express his gratitude, and by the way, he invited him to dinner. After calling Sun Wang, he called his childhood friend Huang Lin. The situation was similar. After the frozen meat was delivered to his designated freezer in the afternoon, because he had not come to take it away beyond the agreed time, he could only contact Huang Lin for the convenience of renting the cave. Sun Wang probably heard some rumors and knew that he was doing something for the Shen family. But Huang Lin didn't know. After he called Suyi but failed to get through, he also took the initiative to pay the fee and helped Suyi extend the rental time of the freezer. When Suyi called, he heard Huang Lin on the other end scolding, where have you been? You didn't answer the phone. I thought you were caught in the club. I'm ready to get you out with a fine, tens of thousands of goods. If you don't want to take it, my father will skin me alive. Although he was very impolite, he was smiling in his tone. Obviously, he didn't think Suyi would do such a thing. It was just a daily insult between friends. Suyi was not annoyed and said with a smile, not really, not really. Even a tiger won't eat its own cubs. How could I skin you alive? Your father is rich now, and seeing that you are a filial son, I will treat you to a good meal. Come out now. You can choose any seat. I can choose any seat? Really, Godfather? Huang Lin on the other end of the phone changed his face in a second and then asked in confusion, you are so generous. What kind of windfall did you make recently? Tell me the truth. Did you do any shady business? If so, why didn't you take me with you? Nothing. I bravely saved a little girl. She is a rich girl, and her father gave me several hundred million to thank me. Suyi said indifferently. He also sent a screenshot of his balance to Huang Lin. This is the money left after buying the house, and there is still more than 2 million. Huang Lin thought Suyi was joking a second ago and was about to scold him for daydreaming. The next second, he saw his balance and was stunned. He said quickly, "Not my brother? No, Godfather, Godfather, did you really give you millions just because you saved a little girl? It's fake. It's a few hundred million. A few? Okay, then a few hundred million. Godfather, I want to go to the most expensive restaurant in Jiangcheng." I said, "You choose a seat, I pay the bill." After a friendly exchange with his good brother, the good brother successfully became a good brother. Suyi hung up the phone with satisfaction. After hanging up, he still said with some regret, "You see, sometimes people don't believe the truth." After the integration of the Shen family, the super large farm is definitely worth a few hundred million. He is not bragging. Speaking of which, he has known Huang Lin for at least 20 years. Well, he is 26 years old this year. They knew each other in kindergarten, and they were classmates from elementary school to junior high school. And they have been neighbors for more than 10 years later. Huang Lin's father made money in the catering business, and the family moved into the urban area of Jiangcheng. But when they were in college, the two were admitted to a first-class university in Jiangcheng together. With the ability to choose their own dormitory, they naturally became roommates for another 4 years. When he was in college, something happened in Suyi's family. His father was injured on the construction site and lost his ability to work. The family was very tight. Suyi could only work part-time while going to school, earning money to pay for various tuition and miscellaneous fees, and barely maintaining his studies during this period. Huang Lin always found various reasons to give him some things and took him out to eat. This and that even his first computer was forced to him by Huang Lin as a gift on his birthday. Huang Lin also mentioned Suyi's work-study program several times in a tactful way, saying that he had told his father that he could help Suyi pay for his tuition and various miscellaneous fees, so that Suyi could go to school with peace of mind and not have to work so hard. At first, he and his father didn't even expect Suyi to pay it back. After being rejected several times, they offered to lend him some money, but Suyi still didn't accept it. Of course, it's not that he doesn't know how to appreciate good people. But he felt that he owed Huang Lin enough favors, and if he owed more, he might not be able to pay it back in this lifetime. Including this time, he asked Huang Lin to help him get a few tons of frozen meat, and Huang Lin agreed without even asking for the purpose. For such a good brother, now that Suyi has become rich, it is naturally impossible for him to forget him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22. In the end, Huang Lin didn't choose any very high-end restaurant. It just so happened that it was evening, so we found a famous food stall in Jiangcheng. The noisy food stalls late at night made Yuling, a visitor from another world, very curious. Suyi and Huang Lin had long been accustomed to it. The two hadn't seen each other for a while, but Huang Lin gave him a bear hug when they met. After some pleasantries, he saw Yuling next to Suyi. He was stunned for a moment and then looked at Suyi in surprise. "This is your foster mother." Suyi skillfully held Yuling's shoulder. She doesn't care about this kind of thing anyway, and she really needs an identity in this world. Human in modern society refers not only to human beings, but also to nodes that form a network of relationships in a complex social system. As an elf, Yuling looks almost like a human. After using a little magic to cover up her pointed ears, she can't tell any difference from a normal person. But after coming to Blue Star, she was not actually a person in the true sense. In addition to having no formal identity, she also has no network of connections as a normal person in modern society. A person who did not exist before. If Suyi wants to give her a formal identity in the future, this will definitely not work now. It will be easy to give her an identity first, and then use this identity as the center to gradually expand the network of relationships. Of course, there are easier ways, such as saving a dignitary with the water of life in his hand. With his connections, it is not difficult to give Yuling an identity point, but this operation has great disadvantages. It is easy to arouse other suspicion and cause unnecessary trouble. Point after all, when someone checked, no one in the world, except Suyui, knew this person. That would be too weird. Point now she often walks around as Suyui's girlfriend, and with her appearance, that can leave a deep impression on everyone. Over time, she can easily integrate into modern society, and it is difficult to find any abnormalities without careful inspection. After all, so many people have seen her. Even if you say she is an alien, no one will believe her. This is one of the reasons why Suyui always takes her with him when he goes out. Point of course, the main thing is to be an eye-catching bodyguard. What the hell? Huang Lin didn't care about Suyui's behavior of taking advantage. He looked at Yuling several times and then looked at his good brother strangely. You don't look blind at all. Why do you fall in love with you? What are you talking about? I'm a charming man, and the tree is in the wind. Isn't it normal for you to fall in love with me? The two exchanged a few insults and then entered the food stall together. Huang Lin also brought his girlfriend with him. He knew very well who his good brother was, a complete scumbag. But people almost have the word scumbag written on their faces. There are women who do this to him, thinking that his family is rich and fantasizing about marrying into a rich family and becoming a rich wife. Who is to blame? This Suyui had never met before, was not familiar with him at all, and had no intention of getting to know him. They just said hello to each other, and that was it. After all, next time we meet, there might be another person following him, and there is no need to recognize him at all. The girl who was brought here was shocked when she saw Yuling's incredible appearance. After sitting down, he carefully asked Yuling what brand of cosmetics she usually uses, how she takes care of herself, and why her skin is so good. But Yuling didn't understand anything, so naturally she couldn't respond. Suyui directly explained that she was deaf and mute and couldn't hear at all. I planned to send it to others, but he still underestimated a woman's persistence in skincare. Seeing that Yuling couldn't answer, she turned to ask Suyui. She doesn't use any skincare products or cosmetics. As for skincare, she keeps her hair. She stays up all night playing games every night. She relies on her talent to grow like this. You can't stop the other party with just one sentence. This is like ordinary people who study hard but can barely pass when they ask a top student with perfect scores how they study. As a result, the top student says that they usually just play games and sleep. You can't learn from pure talent. It was Galen who spoke softly, silently and breaking his defenses. I didn't even say a few words. After giving it to others, the two of them were just having a dinner date as normal friends, so naturally they wouldn't talk too much about work, and they would basically just brag and get over it. Of course Huang Lin was curious about Suyui's recent sudden wealth. But Suyui didn't say anything, so he didn't ask. His brother. He believed that if Suyui could tell, he would not hide it from him, but if he couldn't tell, he would embarrass everyone by asking. And many things, if spoken out, will actually harm others, just like the existence of a trading platform. Suyui didn't even plan to tell his parents, so naturally he wouldn't tell Huang Lin either. But when he was saying goodbye after dinner, he asked Huang Lin a question. Your family is in the catering business. Let me ask you something. What if there is such an ingredient that only needs simple processing? It can be steamed, boiled, baked, or fried. Just add a little salt, and the taste will be far better than those carefully cooked things. Moreover, eating this ingredient can also strengthen the body, beautify the skin, and even eat. If you use it too much, you can be immune to all diseases and have no side effects. It's not an advertisement, it's really effective and very obvious. So will it be a hit? Hey, do you have an elixir? Huang Lin gave him a look. Suyui ignored him and asked, just tell me if this thing has commercial value. Of course it does, but it's only for merchants who sell this kind of food. Not only do we in the catering industry not make any money, but if this thing is not expensive, we might all be out of work. After all, you said it's delicious, no matter how you cook it, so what's the point of having a chef? Huang Lin shrugged. What? If this thing is only authorized to your family's restaurant? Suyui suddenly laughed. Then, I'll become the world's #1 catering giant in a minute, and KFC and Pizza Hut will have to kneel down and call me daddy. Huang Lin waved his hand proudly. After all, you call me godfather, so I can't treat you badly. When the time comes, we'll buy a yacht, not too expensive. A yacht worth tens of millions will be enough. Then hire 300 or 500 young models and play as arrogantly as you want. Dad, I'll buy 2 supercars at a time, 2 villas at a time, and I'll take you flying. Remember what you said. Su Yi patted his shoulder, then walked out of the food stall and prepared to find a designated driver to drive back to the hotel. Huang Lin was patted by him, and the drunkenness in his eyes faded a little. After a moment of hesitation, he quickly caught up with Su Yi and said, "No, are you serious? Did you really get the elixir?" "It's hard to say." Su Yi shrugged. "If I really did, I would definitely not forget you." Chapter 23. Yuling suggested that many of the magic creatures he introduced are edible ingredients. If they are successfully bred on Blue Star, they will definitely be on the table in the future and become a high-end ingredient. However, Su Yi has no interest in the catering industry, mainly because the money he can make from this thing is just so little. The real big part of these items is still in the medical field. Compared with the time and effort to build a catering brand, to sell these ingredients to make money, he might as well find a more professional to do this and share some of the profits. Such a good thing naturally cannot be cheapened by outsiders. As for whether Huang Lin is capable enough, this is secondary. There is a saying that is very true: standing on the wind, even pigs can take off. Not to mention that this is a completely monopolized wind. How he runs it is not important at all. What is important is whether those magic creatures really have the effect that Yuling said. After arriving on Blue Star, no words were spoken all night. The next morning, Su Yi came to the food processing factory where he worked. He had already told Li Wenyuan last night that he would come to receive the batch of flour today. This was the item agreed upon in the second transaction between him and Wei Wei. It would not be appropriate to delay it for too long, so he planned to send this batch of flour today together with the fruits, vegetables and meat that had arrived yesterday. Otherwise, he could just ignore Li Wenyuan and quit his job at the food processing factory and run away. After all, his farm would be able to complete all the formalities tomorrow at the latest, and he could also purchase a large amount of grain in the name of the farm in broad daylight. Like the last time, this transaction was smoother. Su Yi bought the 1,000 tons of flour that Liu Sheng, the idiot, bought last month for storage at a price higher than the current market price of 20 cents per kilogram. There were no accidents on the way. The transportation was still the same as before and was handled by the food processing factory. It was already evening when all the 1,000 tons of flour were delivered to the warehouse designated by Su Yi. This was a large granary not far from Su Yi's farm. Because it was in the suburbs, the price was not expensive, so he bought the entire warehouse directly. Later, he was going to upgrade and modify it and add a freezer with the farm. It was reasonable for him to do these things after he had his own warehouse. He no longer had to worry about the inexplicable disappearance of the things in the warehouse, which would arouse suspicion from others. He put the grain into his own trading item storage space and then went to the freezer and another warehouse to take all the fruits, vegetables and meat. Su Yi finally entered the trading platform again. Although he had not made an appointment in advance, Wei Wei still came as soon as he was called. Just a few minutes after Su Yi notified her through the trading platform that the goods had all arrived, she had already appeared in the trading space. He transferred all the things to her, and the 2 transactions between the 2 parties were considered to be completed. Because the trading platform only has 1 free transaction opportunity per week, and this is the second transaction between the 2 this week. So after the transaction was completed, 10 membership points were directly deducted from each of them. After delivering all the fruits, vegetables, meat and grain, Su Yi received another 19 points. A successful completion of a transaction will reward 5 points, and 2 transactions will be 10 points. Add to that the 8 points he received when delivering rice before. Su Yi now has a lot of membership points. Su Yi, identity, registered member of the space-time trading platform. 1,000 points will be deducted, and you can upgrade to a senior member to unlock more permissions. 27 points. permission/special items, storage space, primary life trading permission card. An additional transaction will deduct 10 points, which can buy a world language card. It's really expensive. Next time, it's better to think about what to trade in advance and hand over all the things in a week at once. Looking at the 10 points spent on the second transaction, and then looking at the good things in the system mall, Suyi just felt that he was at a loss. We also agreed this damn platform system actually eats both sides. The points deducted for additional transactions are not deducted from one party, but from both parties. It's no different from robbing money point. Although it's only 10 points, there are really a lot of good things that can be bought in the small points. Suyi even saw that the full set of nuclear fusion technology only sold for 3,000 member points in the system mall point. Even if I can't afford it now, I can match a few more trading partners and save up for a few years when this good thing is ready. It's no exaggeration to say that he is the light of mankind. What do you want later? Food. The previous transaction is completed, so it's time to talk about the subsequent transaction point. It's also good to prepare in advance. Of course, I want food for a long time. We thought for a while, if you can provide some weapons, preferably consumables such as arrows, it will be better. If your world has any special weapons that we don't have here, I can also purchase a batch to try the effect. I can provide food, and I can provide more next week, at least 3,000 tons. As for weapons, arrows are no problem, and special weapons, we have them here, but I'm afraid it won't be so easy to get them in a short time. Give me some time. As for the power of these weapons, you can rest assured it's useless against strong people like you and dueling, but it's as efficient as mowing the grass against ordinary soldiers. Just kidding. If it weren't for the fact that the other side is a magical world, modern weapons are like meat grinders on the cold weapon battlefield over there, and they can kill people at will point. Even if there are extraordinary powers over there, it's impossible for everyone to have the confidence of Yuling to ignore the hot weapons of individual soldiers. Hot weapons should still work well over there. What about the reward? What do you want? Still gold? We asked hurriedly. With such a partner who can provide food and weapons stably, she has more confidence in the war she is facing. First, I need a magic circle that gathers magic energy. A small one will do. Yuling said it shouldn't be difficult for you to get this. Second, I need some seeds of special magic creatures, and a pair of adult giant horned bulls that have entered the breeding period. I need one male and one female. The cow should be pregnant, as he said. He took out a list with the quality of magic plants selected by Yuling. As for the giant horned bull, it was naturally Yuling's suggestion. Before, Suyi traded so much rice, and there were always some rice seeds that were not processed properly. Since that was not considered a living thing, the seeds of magic plants were probably not considered living things, and these animals like magic beasts are definitely considered living things to trade. You need a life trading permission card. This means that Suyi cannot directly introduce those monster cubs in large quantities from another world. Of course, introducing one male and one female is to facilitate subsequent cultivation. If the cow is already pregnant, it is equivalent to buying two and getting N free, which is the most cost effective. As for why they introduced the giant horned bull, it is because it is one of the most mature beasts in artificial breeding in their world. Although it is a cow, it is different from the cows on the blue planet that can only give birth to 1 or 2 calves at a time. The giant horned bull can give birth to 9 calves at most, and at least 5 or more. And it grows very fast, and has no special requirements for food, just ordinary grass. It has strong vitality, strong disease resistance, and top-notch ability to adapt to the environment. There are branches in every corner of their world. It can not only produce beef, but also milk, which is rich in nutrition, and contains special energy. People have endless benefits from long-term consumption. Compared with the irritability of most beasts, the giant horned bull is quite docile and almost has no aggression. In the case of having to introduce a species of beast, it is naturally the most suitable. Chapter 24. TSK, I don't know if it's right or wrong to send Yuling to you. Wary. Welly glanced at the list in her hand and knew that Suyi could not have done it by herself. At this time, she realized a problem. After sending Yuling to Suyi, the world she was in seemed to be one-way transparent to Suyi. With Yuling, a local, around, it was too easy for Suyi to find out what good things she had. But she didn't know anything about Suyi. When she made the deal, she didn't think so much at all. She just thought that sending Yuling away would save her a lot of trouble, and Yuling could save her life in another world. Now it seems that it's not that simple. What do you mean? Can you do it? Yes. Welly glanced at the list for a few times and didn't refuse. The two immediately started bargaining for the items on the list. Each item on it was carefully selected by Yuling, and the effects and functions were different. Of course, there are deviations in price. It is impossible to settle all at a fixed price, and each item needs to be priced. Since both parties currently have no currency, they will temporarily use the member points that can be traded and transferred as a general equivalent. 1 point equals 100 tons of grain. A male adult giant horn bull is equivalent to 5 points, and a pregnant cow is equivalent to 10 points. As for the mess of magical plant seeds, each has a different price according to its use. The final transaction between the two parties will naturally not be calculated by points. After all, neither of them has enough of this stuff now. It is most appropriate to use points as a general equivalent, and finally converted into grain of the same value for settlement on Suyi's side. After the price was almost agreed, the two parties agreed to meet again next Monday, which is 3 days later, to discuss carefully how much can be provided and maximize the opportunity for free trading next week. Then they went back to their homes with satisfaction. Of course, when Suyi went back, he also spent 10 points to buy a world language access card. Yuling has been doing his best these 2 days, and the reward should still be given. After returning to Blue Star, Suyi had just handed the world language card to Yuling, and before he had time to try it out, a phone call came in. The person on the other end of the phone was Zhao Yan, a manager who claimed to be hired by Shen Mingwen to help him sort out farm affairs. Because Shen Mingwen had made connections in advance, he was very fast. By today, basically all the procedures have been completed. Now we just need Suyi to give the farmer name and sign a few documents, and he can handle all the subsequent matters. The company can be officially listed and open for business tomorrow night at the latest. After consulting some friends and professional lawyers in related industries, Suyi chose the indirect holding model to control the farm. The sole proprietorship business project that Shen Mingwen had given him money before was changed to Xianyu Holdings. Suyi holds 100% of the shares. After the integration, the farm has far exceeded the size limit of local private farms and is now an ecological agriculture demonstration base. Xianyu Agricultural Technology Co. Limited, a subsidiary of Xianyu Holdings, holds 100% of the shares. It seems that this seems to be suspected of taking off pants to fart. But this is indeed the best choice made by Suyi after consulting with many parties and combining his possible future development path. Now he only has Weiwei as a partner on the trading platform, and it is just the initial trading, and he can only produce agriculture for the time being. The scope of business in the future will definitely be far more than this, not to mention other trading partners that may be matched in the future. Just on Weiwei's side, when there are more transactions, the business between them cannot be limited to crops such as grain. For example, the arrows and even hot weapons she needs now. Arrows Suyi can now purchase from some factories. If it doesn't work, it is also a small problem to open a factory to make them. This thing is not illegal in Jiaozhou. This kind of factory can't be placed under the same type of company as the farm. In order to avoid trouble, it is definitely necessary to set up another company at that time, and compared to letting Suyi personally hold shares in two completely unrelated companies, he might as well get an investment company that belongs to him first, and then use the investment company as a medium to control other companies, and finally develop into a group. This can save a lot of costs in the future operation of the company. It is also more convenient for him to integrate the resources at hand. Even in the future, when his team matures, he can build connections abroad, set up a security company overseas, and get a batch of acts to send to Weiwei. This kind of multinational company is obviously more convenient to go the way of public holding by investment companies at least. He doesn't need to show up in person when signing the contract. Just send someone in the company to sign it. As a professional manager, Zhao Yan probably knows that the ambition of this new boss is definitely not limited to a small farm after hearing Su Yi's ideas, but he is just temporarily invited by Shen Mingwen to help Su Yi deal with the miscellaneous matters in the early stage of farm integration. It is hard to say whether Su Yi will let him follow him in the future. He doesn't care much about this. The customer made a request, and he just did it. If it's hard to do, just go to the Shen family. What's more, this matter itself is not difficult to do. The next morning, with the help of the Shen family's awesome network of relationships, Suyi Xianyu Agricultural Technology Co. Limited and Xianyu Holdings completed all the procedures and were able to start operations. It is worth mentioning that Xianyu Agriculture has more than 60 million in cash in its account. And Xianyu Holdings has another 100 million in cash in its account. Money doesn't fall from the sky. This is naturally Shen Mingwen's handiwork. People have done this, so Su Yi naturally has to show his sincerity. That night, he brought Yuling to the Shen family again. Because they had notified in advance, there were not many people in the Shen family this time. In addition to Shen Mingwen and his daughter, there was a man and a woman. The man was an old man with white hair and beard, Shen Mingwen's old father, and the real boss of the Shen family. The woman was called Shen Mingyu, about 26 or 27 years old, full of royal sister style, mature and capable, and was Shen Mingwen's sister. This is a core member of the Shen family. In addition to this family, there are only 4 tough bodyguards in the villa, each with a gun on his waist. They are probably the confidants that the Shen family can really trust. The show is smaller than when Su Yi came before, but the standard is obviously higher. Su Yi was too lazy to ask more about this. After Shen Mingwen introduced him, he greeted everyone one by one and explained his purpose. Come to treat the disease, and it is to completely cure the congenital leukemia of the little girl Shen Yingying. Although he had known the purpose of Su Yi's active visit at this time, Shen Mingwen, a big man who was mixed in both the black and white worlds, was a little nervous. He pulled Su Yi and said, "How sure are you to cure it? Will there be any sequelae after the cure? If nothing unexpected happens, it's 100% sure, and she will not only not have any sequelae, but will also be healthier and longer lived than anyone else in the world." As he said, Su Yi took out a palm-sized exquisite porcelain bottle from his backpack. "The premise is that Mr. Shen trusts me and lets me use the medicine." "What medicine is this?" Shen Mingwen took the porcelain bottle and looked at it. The bottle mouth is sealed by a cork, and you can't smell anything. But you can feel some kind of liquid in your hand. A secret recipe handed down from ancestors, cures all diseases and prolongs life. Chapter 25. Inside the porcelain bottle is naturally the water of life. It was just a diluted version of the 500 milliliter water of life that we had traded to him. This bottle is 100 milliliters, and drinking about 2/3 of it is enough to cure Shen Yingying's illness and extend her life to 150 years old. The initial version of the water of life he got only required about 5 milliliters to achieve this effect. As for the remaining third in the bottle, Su Yi regarded it as a reward for the Shen family's dedicated efforts to help him. If Su Yi said that this was an ancestral medicine that could treat leukemia, Shen Mingwen chose to let him use it without even thinking about it. After all, he had seen Su Yi's ability with his own eyes. In half an hour, he could turn a hopeless patient with late-stage leukemia back into the early to mid-stage stage. It proves that he is really good at dealing with this disease. But Su Yi said that he could cure all diseases and prolong life. He seemed a bit too much like a charlatan, so he couldn't believe it. He hesitated for a while, wondering whether he should let Su Yi take medicine. When his sister Shen Mingyu heard this, she said bluntly, "The hospital is divided into various departments. What medicine can cure all diseases and even prolong life?" This charming beauty frowned, her eyes full of distrust. All he had to do was write the words "you charlatan" on his forehead. "That's why I said, you have to believe me. If you don't believe me, it won't be cured." Su Yi shrugged and ignored their suspicions. He wanted to save the little girl by more than just using the water of life. It would be easiest to just ask Yuling to use a more advanced healing technique. Outsiders would not be able to tell the reason, even if they were watching from the side. They would just be inexplicable and the girl's illness would be cured. But in this case, how can he sell his water of life, how to quickly make money, and accumulate original capital? We have a professional medical laboratory under our name. If you don't mind, I hope that it can be tested before use. It will be cured soon. Shen Mingwen proposed a compromise. There's no need to go to such trouble. I know what you're afraid of, Su Yi shrugged, pulled out the cork, picked up the porcelain bottle, and poured a sip into his mouth. I killed a third of it directly, and the remaining little bit was probably just enough to treat the little girl. In fact, ever since Yuling talked about the effects of the water of life, he had already drank some of it himself. After drinking it, my skin has indeed improved a lot, and some minor ailments that were not painful or itchy before, such as mild myopia, rhinitis, etc., have also been cured. Other than that, I didn't really feel anything. In this regard, Yuling's explanation was that he was now in his 20s, the age when one's energy is most vigorous and at its peak, and he was free from illness and disaster. It is normal to not feel anything special about drinking a small amount of VAUDV. After drinking this dose of water of life, the most obvious physical sensation should be the elderly in patients. Well, don't worry about whether it is useful or not, but it must be non-toxic. Su Yi put the porcelain bottle on the table and wiped the corners of his mouth. This is the only amount of this special medicine I can provide in a short period of time. If you believe it, use it. If you don't believe it, I'll drink it all in front of you. It won't be a problem, Mr. Su. Have you thought about it? Even if you cannot eradicate Ying Ying's disease, I will not take back the things I gave you before, let alone hold you responsible for other responsibilities. Shen Mingwen confirmed again. To put it bluntly, it is to remind Su Yi that, if he is not sure, he can just say it directly, and there is no need to pretend to be fat, because he is afraid of the Shen family's retaliation. Since I said it can be cured, then it can be cured. If it can't be cured, I'll be here and let you do whatever you want. Su Yi said from the passage. He had tried this thing himself, and he really didn't feel there was anything very magical about it. But he has not been in good spirits these past 2 days, which is enough to explain a lot of problems. Okay, then I will believe you again. After everything is done, the 500 million promised to you will remain unchanged, and an additional 200 million will be added as a reward for purchasing your bottle of magic medicine. Shen Mingwen was also a decisive person. After speaking, he picked up the porcelain bottle and walked into the room. Shen Mingai behind him moved his lips slightly, but in the end he didn't say much. She also knew about Shen Yingying's condition. Although she didn't trust Su Yi, who looked a bit like a charlatan, she couldn't fake the fact that a large number of cancer cells in Shen Yingying's body disappeared out of thin air a few days ago. Therefore, even though I still don't believe it in my heart, I can't help but feel a glimmer of hope. What if? As for the old man of the Shen family, he never spoke a word from the beginning to the end. After Shen Mingwen went in with a bottle of medicine, he said to Su Yi intentionally or unintentionally, "Young man, can this medicine really cure all diseases and prolong life? Whether it's true or not, we'll find out later." Su Yi replied politely. Seeing his confident look, the old man's cloudy old eyes also had a glimmer of light, and he said in a deep voice, "Can you make similar medicine? It's okay, but the output is definitely very low. It's not profitable to do this, so I might as well run my business well." Su Yi acted in a difficult way. "How can you not make money?" The old man immediately became energetic. "In this way, if your medicine is really effective, I will ask Mingwen to invest another billion in you to open a medical company. You don't have to give us the Shen family shares. Just ensure that the 4 of us in the family are supplied with medicine when they need it. What do you think? As for the extra medicine, it doesn't matter if the production is small. We can sell it at a higher price. As long as your medicine is effective, I have quite a few connections. If those old people know that there is such a good thing, you will definitely benefit from it." The old man looks at least 70 years old, but he is actually in good spirits. You can tell at a glance that he takes good care of himself. However, this big shot obviously hasn't lived long enough. When he heard Suyi say that this thing can prolong his life, the old man wanted to try it. But first, he didn't know whether Suyi was true or not. Secondly, his granddaughter needs this medicine more now. If there is more medicine, he certainly hopes that he can live longer, but if there is only one, he will naturally not rob his granddaughter of the life-saving medicine. Now that he heard Suyi say that this thing can be manufactured, he naturally became excited. What's difficult or not, isn't it just a matter of money? In his opinion, if Suyi's medicine really has this effect, let alone money, even if he wants a certain limit of power, it will definitely not be a problem. Thank you for your support, old man. Just wait and see. Suyi smiled and pointed to the door. Shen Mingwen is not a hesitant person. Since he has already taken the medicine in, it is estimated that he will not delay for too long. However, this time it was a bit beyond Suyi's expectations. They waited downstairs for more than half an hour before Shen Mingwen came downstairs. He was holding a cute little girl in his arms. It was Shen Yingying. When he first saw this girl, Suyi just thought that she looked very bad. After Yuling used a healing spell on her that night, the little girl's face became visibly rosy, and she became a little lively. But at that time, she still looked worse than a normal child of this age. Until now. Shen Yingying was held in Shen Mingwen's arms. Her face was rosy and her eyes were bright. Anyone who came would praise her as a beautiful porcelain doll, which was really rare. It was totally unimaginable that a few days ago, this was still a cancer patient who had been almost sentenced to death by the hospital. If complexion is too mysterious and not so intuitive, then her long black hair braided into a pigtail is very recognizable. Because of long-term chemotherapy, Shen Yingying had no hair on her head before. And now this long black and smooth hair is almost longer than her. Anyone with a discerning eye can tell that it can't be a wig. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.